them the other night. They're like, aren't you trying to improve one down there? It was cheaper.
electric.
No kidding.
Yeah, I lost right away and the poles and wires. This time it was. So half my time goes to fiber.
I was half of the day I have done, and there's a fiber, so I wanted it for the kids here. It's recovering. And we had $1.
And I.
Yeah.
I think it's like, oh, I mean.
Wait, I know you got last day.
And when I.
House, like, you're like, so with this, I went from like, it's like 20 minutes to the shower and get ready. He was, you're fine.
Yeah, you will say. Oh,
I knew a lot of people.
I'll close it out.
Close themselves. And you waited.
I knew a lot of people.
Yes. Like this is the past week.
I can't believe all the people from St. Paul.
Oh. Got on the couch now. I started. Get there here.
I was laughing at your truck when I backed in. I'm like,
That's pretty much it there.
Yeah.
Falls Town.
Where we were.
I'm like, you just can't go in Walmart and pick those up. I like Santa's candy and I just can't run into,
Yep.
get on Amazon and get that word.
It's the same, which we don't, if it's not that.
Right.
Yes, I
It's like. I mean,
Tell me.
All right, good evening, everyone. I call this May board meeting to order. I'd like to welcome all our guests. Jeff, I want to make sure you can hear us. Jeff is attending virtually. Jeff, can you hear us?
I think I'm unmuted now. Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. Okay. So we're starting the meeting. I want to start out again tonight to thank the RMC for a job well done this last weekend. We've had several storms to talk about of last year and a half. So good job for all your help. We will start at the beginning to approve the agenda.
Can I add to the end of the agenda questions on elections and ballots?
Okay. So we'll move that towards the tail end.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Will there be an opportunity for us to discuss the letter we got from Carl's attorney this afternoon?
Yeah, we can place that after talking about the election. Okay. Any other changes? Motion?
I'll make a motion.
With the changes, correct, Suzanne?
Additions.
Okay,
Second.
second. Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. All right, so we've got the agenda. Brett, safety man, one moment.
All right, so for the cool moments, I had a couple different opportunities here to be engaged with the community. So the first one on the left there, we donated water for the a fourth grade trip to Brazil State Park. So you can see we got a couple pictures there. And then on the right side, Abby took the opportunity at South Decatur for a program called Life and Beyond. That's an event where junior high students are learning what life beyond high school looks like. So I thought it was cool that we were able to take part in that event. It was a success. Safety moment. So I don't think you guys had the storm as much as we did you?
We had 10,000 out at one point.
Okay.
We got hammered.
So you guys got hammered too. So if anybody wasn't aware, on Saturday around 4 to 4:30, we were hit with some pretty strong storms. I didn't hear the actual wind gusts, but I heard they're in the 80s at some points, and also some possible tornadoes. So we had a record number of outages at one time. We're right around a recorded number of outages, right around 2,200. The areas of the greatest impact were south of Greensburg, so that Napoleon area, New Point, Mill Isles, and south of St. Paul. We had 12 broken poles, 5 which were on that 420 right in a row where we had a domino effect basically on 421. We were able to call in, I think first we called in D&T, who's our contractors today. We had a crew from there. Whitewater Valley didn't get it as bad, and Southeastern got some, but they were able to get theirs cleaned up pretty quick. So they sent over some folks. And then we also had Schaumburg on with us also. And then Brian was able to bird dog along with, we brought in Jim to basically bird dog. Because anytime you bring in crews from outside the system, it's sort of our rule that you have somebody that knows the system actually do the bird dogging. So want to thank those guys. The majority of the outages were restored by 9 p.m. on Sunday. So that puts us, on average about a 29-hour plus outage. And then we had one that we ended up having to fix this pole, and it was one of the ones on the very end. So we had everything restored by 1 a.m. on Monday morning. You can see some of the pictures here of some of the damage. So first and foremost, the reason I brought this up as a safety moment is I want to thank Pat and his team. It's critical to make sure, a lot of times we get questions of, well, where's the crews at, wanting updates and things like that. And as much as from a leadership standpoint, I'm sure, James, you feel the same way. From a leadership standpoint, we want to know where everyone's at, where they're going next, what's the time of restoral is going to be. And sometimes we have to step back and say, hey, look, these guys have a serious job they're doing. They have to concentrate. They have to take their times. And we got to make sure that we're not bothering them a whole bunch. So what I'd like to report, though, is we went through this fairly large sized outage with 0 injuries, 0 accidents. So again, I'd like to thank Pat, his team, and everyone that was involved, from running meals to whatever else that was needed during the outage. So,
Yeah, thank you.
that is my safety.
Any questions for Brett?
Is it, curious, is it common for, like here on 421 for them to poles to snap off like that without trees helping it or anything like that?
When you see 80 to 90 mile an hour winds, it's going to happen somewhere on the system. And typically what happens is that's an area where we have 477. We have communication lines on it. And once that wind knocks over that first one, it sort of takes a domino effect. So actually when Larry Downey was on that outage and I'd asked him that next morning, whether those poles, and he looked at me and said, those poles were within probably 10 years. I mean, they were still as green as can be. So it has nothing to do with the age of the pole. It's just those high winds, you get micro bursts like that and something's got to give. And with that 477 wire, because it's 3-phase, it's about that thick, very heavy stuff. The pole's going to break before the wire. So whatever's got to give, it's usually the pole. And then when one goes, it puts stress on all the other poles. And so, yeah, it's very typical to see a line of them like that. And it believe it or not, it really depends on too. A lot of times you see north-south, at least in my experience, north-south lines a lot of times see the brunt of that because that's what the wind's coming out of. Now you got the wind going against the pole and the wind going against all those wires. And a lot of times you'll see those poles be affected more than, so the location, my point is the location sometimes matters too. To answer your question, Clay, it's not uncommon
I didn't know.
in a storm like that.
All right, thanks. Next topic for your information. Anybody have any questions from anything for your information?
I just have a generic question. And I use the CTO as, more of a reference guide to look versus going back through all the minutes. How hard is it to update the dashboard?
It's not that hard.
Because I know like you have it down there, approved budget on CTO as an action item. Is it? And then before I requested to do the current debt, I didn't know how hard it was. I know they said timestamp things we don't really want on there, but I didn't know how difficult it was just to update.
I think what we've discussed in the past, it's fairly easy to do the update. I don't think we have anything specifically scheduled when there's a change made, for example. In other words, loans are dynamic. And so when you want that information, Suzanne, just let me know.
I mean, the budget was approved back in February, though.
It's the
That was an
budget's
action
up.
item.
The actual 126 is the latest budget.
Okay, it's still under your action items, though.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure that was the
Due
limit.
date's 5/27, so I was just curious why is,
It's done. It's been out there since we approved it.
The 126 date, I think, is what's out there, right? On
Correct.
dashboard is
Correct.
the latest and
So what I'm going to try to do, Suzanne, to answer your question a little bit more directly, whenever we have something that comes up like our Form 7, for instance, when it goes in front of the board, my plan is I'm going to put that on the actual month. And then that will kick me off to transfer it over to the dashboard. So typically, anytime you guys ask for a piece of information that, because I get it, right? Being able to go back to one location to find things. That's the beauty of call to order, honestly, which you're going to hear a little bit about what we want to do going forward. Part of the beauty of call to order is there is that dashboard and there is the ability to put some things on there. We eventually have a talk about how long do things go on there because some of the problems are we're running into some space and got a lot of stuff out there. So how long do we want to keep this out there? That's something we need to discuss at some point. But to answer your question, I'm going to put it on the agenda, just like this for your information. So the Form 7 and the 990 will move from the month over to the dashboard is what I'll try to do. So, but if you want to see something specifically updated, I suggest just let me know and we'll, as long as we all agree that based upon somebody's need, we'll just update it or we'll put something out there. And we can change. I don't even know, is all the stuff that's out on the dashboard relevant? Could we get rid of some of that to free some space up? It's totally up to you, whatever's convenient.
Matt, I have a question for you. At the end of 21 in the Form 7, we still had funds in the CFC daily fund. My understanding was that was going away. So when does that done, that daily fund?
There's always that little bit of money there. I mean, it's not much. It's just,
So it's not going away completely. We're just not participating. Because I thought that they were doing away with that. That wasn't going to be available to us anymore.
I thought that was when I had my meeting last week, they still talked about.
Okay.
Options.
All right.
So,
Let's take a action item, take a look at that.
yeah, I'll look into that.
I know that it's drawn down.
I know at one point we were talking about it going away, but I don't know what timelines or what the latest is. We'll find out.
okay. What else?
Matt, is this, that Insight conference, we getting reimbursed for that stuff there?
It's been invoiced and reimbursed, yes.
Their reimbursements?
Yep.
Okay,
So the original agreement was you guys go ahead and pay for it. That way you can pick what flights you want and what hotel and stuff and then invoice us and we already invoiced them and paid. So
but who all, did you, Rachel, end up,
just me.
just you? Okay. In the check register on page 18. Two questions. All those polls, are those each individual line on from page 3 to however 7? Are those each individual polls or is there something, what's the,
There isn't.
it's like there's a.
Yeah, so it just depends on what makes sense for them to close out. So in other words, they'll try to batch them as much as they can.
Okay.
But we've gotten invoices for 1, we've gotten invoices for 10. And it also depends on the construction of the pole, right?
Okay.
They're all going to be different amounts depending on how many. and
Some of them are.
What constructions.
Yeah.
It's all over the board.
I seen it, I thought,
No, it's a good question.
Some of them are work on individual polls. So it's just, it's all different.
It usually depends on their accounting system and
Yes.
when they get their.
I was just curious if that was, each poll was getting, if that was.
No.
On page 18, the fire system engineering consulting services for 44,000, what's that entail?
That's our construction work plan that they're designing.
Okay.
And so
It's CapEx for the construction work.
That's fine.
That would be one to draw attention to, though.
You're fine. I'm just trying to.
There's several things getting ready to go off here soon.
The good news is we're getting a lot of construction work planned and pole replacements. We're getting a lot of work done. The bad news is we got to pay for it. And there's a lot of work orders in the system.
We currently have an open work orders. We have over $1 million right now that we have, that are in process going on. So a lot of things are happening all at once. So when I present my June stuff, I'll have a much better idea.
Okay.
Anyone have anything else?
I guess we should talk about the key indicator report this time, since that's here. We had a series of emails that started this week about that. Last email I saw said that we're gonna pick formula and leave it as is. Is that correct?
So I'll take blame on this completely. Last month, I fixed the long-term error in the March form, and I did not fix it in the carry forward permanent spreadsheet. So the carry forward spreadsheet is not fixed.
So moving forward, part of the reason I sent out the email prior to the meeting was I didn't feel like it was appropriate to identify those individual accounts in an open board meeting. Maybe those should be numbered in some way so that if we need to have a discussion in this room, we can talk about number 3 or number 8 or whatever.
I agree with that, yeah. I think I did that on the budget too. I tried to number
We
stuff.
should probably do that moving forward.
I think I did that on the budget as I gave them different.
Yeah, anything specific, we probably just put company 1, company 2. I mean, we do that for members.
I don't think it's ever been presented in a manner that anybody outside of the board could see.
But have a
Just in case.
discussion in here. If we-
Yes, just in case, yes.
Everybody good, or we have any additional questions for Brett and staff? All right, we'll go on to the next item, approve previous month's minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay, down on, I've got two different topics. I didn't see any mention, and maybe I missed it, of Brian Garrison being present at the meeting. Shouldn't have that been recorded?
Executive session. He was still here for the open meeting. No.
yeah, I think we'll get it on there, Jeff.
Okay, and then the second issue I have is down on it's listed as the RUS loan discussion. It should be CFC loan discussion. And I texted Brian an addition that I would like added to that.
Where's that at, Jeff? What, is it on like the 3rd page?
It's the next to bottom on the second page. It is the bottom on the second page.
I got it. Did you get what?
You want me to read it, or Brian, or is it easier for Brian to read it?
Once he said the RUS loan application was not submitted by management, the 1.5 million RUS loan at 2.2% or less that was approved by the directors during the February board meeting was unavailable to use to pay off the CFC loan.
Was that mentioned at the last meeting then?
I didn't.
Can you read that again, Brian? I did not hear you.
loan application was not submitted by DC RMC Management. The 1.5 million RUS loan at 2.2% or less that was approved by the directors during the February board meeting was unavailable to use to pay off the CFC loan.
Is that a correct statement, Matt?
I mean, we weren't able to submit we didn't submit it because they wasn't approved yet to submit. So
Is it available to you?
it wasn't available as an option.
I think if we're going to put that in there, we need to put the reasons why.
Yeah, I think you gotta have clarification.
There's a lot more than management just didn't submit it.
Yeah, but this could have been applied for over the last 3 years because it's been mentioned in the last 3 budgets.
Say that again, Jeff?
I believe there's a reference to borrowing money and money being available to draw down in the last 3 budgets. So this was just more than not being submitted the last couple months.
I think there's a lot more to that.
Yeah, what, you just said something, I thought a moment ago. What's your thoughts on it?
I don't think did I say something? I don't think I said that.
Oh, maybe you didn't.
Okay.
Matt, the parameters that the board put around that borrowing in February never hit, right?
No,
Yes,
No,
it did. When I
it's
asked last month, Matt said it got to 2.06 and we
but I
approved.
was not allowed to borrow unless it was under 2.
I thought it was under 2.2.
It was under 2%.
Okay, I stand corrected then.
Dale said, what if it gets under 2.1? And I said, well, we picked a number and it was 2. And then I told Dale at the next meeting, I said, you were right, Dale, it got under 2.1, but not under 2.
Okay, then I stand corrected.
So Jeff, you're saying you're okay with what we have regarding the RUS loan on the minutes?
Yes, I'm fine with that. Well, it needs to be changed to a CFC loan.
But it is a CFC loan.
So I got that. And then I just added, is that okay? I'll put his entity's name in here.
Yeah.
And at the last topic of the open meeting last month, we did discuss the legal email from Carl's lawyer regarding the election. I think that should be included in the minutes.
At the end.
Yeah.
We won't.
Just that, discuss the legal email from Carl's lawyer regarding the election. We didn't take any action on it specifically. Regarding election. All right, anyone have anything else?
Back up to the top there, please. All the way.
You go.
Yep, all the way to first page. Did you want to have it, Brian Garrison, in that line or the next one down?
Next one down.
Good point. I'll put the firm's name here. Not gonna attempt to spell it.
All right, I need a motion to approve. Please make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same. All right, approved. All right, Brad, you're gonna make an introduction.
Yes, see if I can get this up and running. So we had talked about, Steve and I talked about the last IEC board meeting and a core telecommunication, and I gave a brief overview. Probably didn't do very good justice, James, but anyways, James had offered that any co-op that would be interested in this, that he would come present. So I asked him to come present. So two things. Number one is James Dannenberger. He is the CEO of SCI. SCI has been in a fiber project now for 4 years.
4 years.
And they're actually planning on finishing this year. So he also told me, right as he was coming in, that if you guys have questions about fiber projects, he's a good resource. He's been through it, right? So I would suggest once he gets done with Core Telecom, if you do have questions and things, this is the guy that's got a lot of the answers, right? I hope so. So anyways, James, thanks for coming in. I'll give you the thing and take away.
All right. Yeah, thank you very much. So SCI, just so you guys know, that's South Central Indiana REMC, right? So we're between Indianapolis and Bloomington. We're in 7 counties, but 4 primary counties. That's Owen County, Brown County, Morgan County, and Monroe. It's about 1,000 square mile system. Those are our 4 primary counties. Got tiny little bits in Johnson County, Clay County, and Putnam. So that's where we sit, kind of in that path right between Indianapolis and Bloomington. This is probably my favorite subject in the world. So you guys shut me down if I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet. But I think I'm just very excited to talk to you all, because right now you're at the position that we were at SCI. I became CEO. So 1 month after I became CEO, we made the decision to move forward with a fiber to the home network. We're in a very similar position to where you guys are right now, looking at feasibility studies. We've been having a conversation for about 4 years, and they needed to hire a CEO. They did some strategic planning, and they put some very specific information out about what they were looking for. And one of the reasons why I ended up at SCI was because of what I plan to do with fiber. We built a fiber system. So Core Telecom is really, it's the culmination of 4.5 years of work that we've done. We've been talking to all of our fellow electric co-ops. Basically, I'm going to show you some things here. When we go to build these fiber to the home networks, we build what's called a backbone ring that basically most of us, the design we use is we build a ring that goes around to our substations, and we put what are called ODCs or OLTs, which are cabinets at each of those substations. And so basically we're sending light around to those OLTs, and it's powered all the way around. And then when it goes out, it spiders out on our feeders. We basically built ours parallel to our electric system, basically the same. And when it goes out from those cabinets down our feeders, then it's no longer a powered system. It's what they call a passive system. So it goes down and goes to splitters, and it splits out and goes to homes, and you don't have to have power to any of those splitters. So it's a GPON network. It's a gigabit passive optic network is what I assume you guys would be building. And that's what we built. I would say before I get started here that things have gone really well for us. We started out with an $81 million project. By the time we got ready to actually start, it was looking like an $84 million project. We've had some things go our way. Because of the timing of our project, we were actually, as we were building, we were disqualifying ourselves from all of the grant opportunities that were coming out because we were just a little bit too early everywhere. So we ended up getting to date about $6 million through grant funding. So if you want to know what the worst case scenario is, we probably have lived it, and we still got $6 million along the way. So think about that. Another thing that happened was we overlapped a couple of telephone systems. And because we overlapped them, in one case, one of the telephone systems out to our west, Endeavor, had already built fiber to their membership, and it overlapped ours. So one of the things we did was we didn't build fiber there. So that took care of about 3,500 homes. So we've got about 35,000 meters, just so you all know. Our density is around 9.5 meters per mile, 7.6 members per mile. So we didn't have to build that little sliver on our west side that an Endeavor had already done. And we had an area that overlapped Smithville Fiber. And we went to them and we actually had sort of a partnership with them where we're building it. They're paying for it. It's in their old telephone territory. So had we built fiber in there and competed with them, we would have really hurt their business. So we came together and we worked together and figured out how we built it, they bought it, they own it. And then basically our members and their customers get to pick between us and them. And we really don't care who they choose because by virtue of doing that project the way we did, we saved $14 million. So we no longer have an $84 million project. We've got more like a $72 million project, all said and done. So getting some grant funding along the way. What I will say is we jumped in feet first and went ahead and started moving. There are a lot of things and a lot of opportunities that you find out about as you get in and you start doing it that you don't find out about if you don't jump in. So this business that I'm going to talk to you about is a lot about doors opening, right? You have to be there sometimes to realize what the doors are that are going to be opened. And if you don't get there, you never find out. You just don't know. But if you're there and you take some little leaps, basically there are some things that we've done because we needed, for instance, where we sit, we're close to Indianapolis. We needed to get bandwidth to be able to provide for our members. So we actually built our own tie to Indianapolis because we needed it. So we knew that if we could have our own tie, we could save enough money to almost pay for that tie. Not quite, but almost. So we've made some decisions on things like that where we've gone ahead and done them. And then things have happened. Like in the course of going and splicing that tie, we got a call from NDOT doing the I-69 project. They're going to be tearing up IU's I-Light fiber going from Bloomington to Indianapolis, and they don't have a plan for what they're going to do. So as soon as we're splicing up that tie at Henry Street, we just got an opportunity. So we ended up making an agreement with IU for them to go through our system to get to Indianapolis, and we paid for our tie to Henry Street. So things like that, you hit a few home runs doing stuff like that, you start to realize, hey, this works. It's very different from the model that we're used to on the electric side, but I can tell you that if you can just get there, and a lot of it comes down to justifying doing something. We were justifying doing things because, hey, it didn't cost that much. Not because you could show all the revenues that we were going to get. What we would do is say, okay, even if this worst case scenario was nothing more than what we have right here, if we never make another dime, we'd be okay. And we'd go ahead and do it. And guess what? Every time it ends up being something happens that pays for that investment. And now you got that investment there that you can capitalize to do other things. So that's my spiel about going into the fiber business before I get started talking about this. What I would say is don't be afraid. There are those of us who've been successful, who've done this, who absolutely want to help you succeed. Man, I tell you what, I'm excited about where you are. If you decide to go forward, I promise you, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that you guys succeed. So,
And he's
I'll do it.
offered, James has offered that up about every time I talk to him. He's like, where's your board at? You need anything? So I am the CEO of South Central Indiana REMC. I am the board chairman now of Accord Telecommunications Collaborative. This is a company that we created, and it is designed to be something to benefit all the electric co-ops, not just the electric co-ops, but the telephone co-ops as well. This thing is being created to fit our business model. As you guys all know, our business model is how did you do this year, right? What we don't want to do is create a business that we're trying to grow and keep dumping all the money in and we don't ever see any return. And one day we sell it for a big pile of money, right? A big pile of money that we keep pointing at doesn't convince our lenders that we're a healthy business. Ours is all about that ongoing revenue, right? So Accord Telecom, and that's short for Accord Telecommunications Collaborative. So of one accord, that's kind of the thought behind the name. And just so you guys know, this thing is as much yours as it is SDI, as it is any other co-op. The way this thing is set up, there's no third party we need to make rich. We're doing this thing where we all come together and create something that has the potential to create revenues that I promise you are not in your feasibility study. So I'll be happy to explain that to you. The other thing I want to tell you, back on my soapbox about going into the business. One other thing that was not in our feasibility study that we realized after going into the business
is that fiber is now paying for $1 million of expenses on the electric side. And that's not in the feasibility study. So because part of my time goes to fiber, part of because we're doubling up and we're using people to do two things, now our fiber business, and we were right at that point where we're about to become cash flow positive 4 years in, where our expenses versus our revenues is right there. So at the end of this year, we'll be earning $6 million a year in fiber revenue, fiber to the home revenue. So right now, at the end of this year, we'll be at about 8,500, and we intend to settle out in the 10 to 12,000 range. And business model works at that, and then that's where we don't have to add any additional staff, and it's kind of our sweet spot. So we're going to kind of stay there. We're not doing a whole bunch of building outside our territory anymore. We're doing a little bit of that over in UDWI's territory, but we're going to kind of cool our jets on that because we've got some other things that might be better investment opportunities. So Accord Telecom. So, yeah, Brett, if you can move that over. Okay, so I was talking to you guys about you're going into the fiber to the home business. So this is the basic model of what you're going to do. That building right there is our main building in Martinsville. And in that main building, we've got these 4 routers that tie us to the internet. We got 2 feeds to the internet. And then that comes out and you have what's called an active network. It's basically, it's like a backbone. It's a backbone ring and essentially has these nodes at each of your substations that you connect to. That's your backbone ring. And then out of each of these nodes, you go out into what we call the last mile. And I'll show you a graphic here. And basically we go out through our feeders out to splitters, and from the splitters, it goes to the homes. So that's your basic GPON fiber to the home network. So every one of these cabinets will have something like this coming out of it, but for sake of simplicity, I'm only showing one.
Tell you what, I'll just move it.
Yeah, next. It's not locked up. Okay, so so what I'm talking about here is something day one when we started, we're like, man, we kind of sit in a good spot here. We could get connected to Henry Street and we could help our fellow co-ops that are around us by selling them tier 2 bandwidth at a reasonable price. And that was what first got us started thinking about, hey, let's get connected with our neighbors so that we can sort of have some sort of control over what we have to pay price-wise for bandwidth. And so that's where the idea of the transport network came in. And the idea is what we want to do is we want to take these. So in this example, let's just say I used Bartholomew because back then Bartholomew was thinking about going into fiber. They've got some other folks that are building their system now. But this is SCI's system. This is someone like Bartholomew, a neighboring co-op. Basically what you do is you make 2 or 1 tie to them, and then they make a tie to another co-op, and the next thing you know, you can go to the next one. Okay, so I got to back up for just a minute. This is a graphic that shows you more like those backbones tied together. That's what we call the middle mile network, and I'm going to use that term. So this is a graphic that'll help you realize that's what we mean by middle mile network. It's what we call, it's like the highway, right? So it's the backbone. Each of us has a backbone that's like, might be 144 strands in our case. In some places, it's 44 strands of fiber. That's the middle mile network. And then the whole network that gets it out to the homes and goes down our electric feeders, that's what's called the last mile. So that's the difference between middle mile and last mile. So what I'm talking about today is that middle mile network that we're going to create. And it's for purposes of transport. So transport is basically, it's a business that's been around for ages, right? 20 years anyway, right? And the whole idea is to be able to, this is what we're doing with transport. That's what the basis behind Accord Telecommunications. I think most of you probably know what this is, right? This is an Ethernet cable that you'd use in an office like this to connect the computers to the printers and various other things. So you basically, you buy apps once and you buy one printer, one large printer, and then you can connect a bunch of computers to it and you basically network and you can gain efficiencies that way, right? This has a very limited distance that it can cover. So transport, all transport is doing is saying, okay, you got a bank branch here in town, let's just say, and that bank branch is one of 10 branches across Indiana. What we do with transport now, with fiber, fiber is almost lossless. So all we're doing is taking this Ethernet cable signal, which is an electric pulse, right? As complicated as computers are today, at the end of the day, it all comes back to ones and zeros. Because originally, when it was all designed, electricity could be either on or off. So at its core, all communications comes back to ones and zeros. So all we're doing is taking this Ethernet cable, it's using electricity to do ones and zeros to network within a building. And basically, we're coming to the end of this and we're converting those electric pulses to light pulses, sending them down a tiny strand of fiber over, could be hundreds of miles. And on the other side, all we're doing is converting that back to an electric pulse to go through one of these cables. And effectively, what we can do is we can take 10 bank branches and we can allow them to network as if they're in the same building. So now they only buy applications one time. They only need one tie to the internet and they share it with their provider. So they save a ton of money. So they're all looking to do this kind of stuff. That's one piece. The other thing would be like cell phone towers. Cell phone tower wants to go up somewhere, we hook them up, they need fiber backhaul to get back to wherever their headquarters are. That could come through something like this as well. But same basic concept. Okay, next one, Brett. So the idea is to take all those backbones that we've built, and here's the deal. Those of us who've already built fiber to the home networks, we built them for two reasons. Smart grid, so that we can operate our electric systems in the future. And we're all hearing about how, look, you're going to have really good communications in the future because there's going to be more and more generation one on the distribution side of your systems, and we're going to need to be able to control that stuff. So that's one reason. The second is because our members need high-speed internet. So for those two reasons, we've built these networks and we've financed them for those reasons. This was never a thought. This transport network, we never factored into it. So the way we look at it is we're operating something based on an asset that's being paid for other reasons. And so we've got a pretty good chance to take something that we already own and set up a business with zero debt to do what I'm talking about right here. So that's what I'm talking with you guys about tonight. You can go to the next one, Brett. So Accord is meant to be the owned fiber transport network in the state of Indiana for co-ops, not just electric, but electric and telephone. And the idea is to set this up at the business model that I told you guys about so that we're able to generate revenue continuously year after year after year. Once we get that set up the way we want it, and we're just about there, right? So we're just about to actually start doing business as Accord. We may welcome others. We'll do business with anyone across our network, just to get that straight. So basically the network is not there just for us to use. Our network will be a tool that other companies will use too. And the idea is each of us, electric co-ops, just to get started, we're going to bring two strands of fiber that we already own to Accord. And we're basically saying, hey, we're building a network that's going to benefit all of us. So I'm bringing these two strands across my backbone ring forward to Accord. Accord doesn't pay anything for those strands. So just to give you a very simplified view of how we're going to figure the ownership share in Accord, or how we are figuring the ownership share, is let's say you've got 200 miles of backbone. Let's just say your backbone measures 200 miles. And all the backbone in Accord, all those circles tied together is 2,000 miles. So your 200 over 2,000 means you have 10%. And that sets your ownership share in Accord. So that's your asset that you bring forward is your investment. The other investment to get into Accord is only $10,000. Okay. So the $10,000 we ask for to become a member, quite honestly, that is really just to pay attorneys and some consultants up front. And that's what the first 5 of us put up. So in order to make it a level playing field, we decided that membership would be 10,000. But the real value that you bring is your strands of fiber backbone. And that sets your ownership share. And the cool thing about Accord then is any traffic that happens anywhere across Accord that earns a net revenue that gets paid out, you're going to get your ownership share, whether it goes across your fiber physically or not. So anywhere in the Accord network, anywhere in this network, and there aren't quite as many dots as what are shown up here. We have 21 members of Accord. And half of them are in the south and half of them are in the north. We have really good diversity within Accord. And we're going to continue adding to that. But I've got a map here that kind of shows you just how much territory we cover in the state. Okay. Yeah, let's jump forward. If we can come back, we'll come back. Let's keep on going there. Okay, so the blue in this map represents the electric co-op territories that have built fiber that have signed up to be a part of a co-op. With the exception of in this area right here to the west, there's UDWI is there, and they're not building their own fiber, but we're building fiber in their territory. So it's an open territory for us to build. But you get an idea when you see the blue just how much of the geographic territory in the state of Indiana we cover. So the goal here is to make Indiana the most connected state. If we can make Indiana the most connected state, and the other thing is for Accord, today, you can't just hop on in southern Indiana and travel all the way to northern Indiana with data to do transport. It's not cost effective. Why is it not cost effective? You can go, if you don't mind going back. It's not cost effective because let's just say if we as electric co-ops operated independently and you had to pay a fee to get across each of our networks, it would be pancake, right? So you pancake all the way across the state and as a result, you end up with a price that is such that you don't do it. So if you're in far southern Indiana, you don't bother trying to go north, you go south, right? To get to where you need to be. So Accord is, instead of having to go individually across those systems and pay each one of them, the idea behind Accord is you pay one price. You jump all the way across the state of Indiana on our network. And again, it's a network with no debt that has all these dollars and assets that we're paying for another reason. So by the end of this year, we'll be leveraging about $1 billion in assets. So if you take that fiber backbone ring and we're bringing 2 strands forward, right? That's not $1 billion. But if you think about the rest of our system, so that last mile piece is important because yeah, you can jump around the state, but can you get down to where the customer really is or where the member is who needs to connect bank branches? We're leveraging 20,000 miles of system fiber with these backbone rings that we have. So $1 billion in assets, 0 debt. And the idea is that allows us to be so competitive as we cross across the state that we're the network of preference. And the middle mile network that I'm telling you about, it's a profit center. It can make a profit, but the greatest value is what the last mile business that it drives to you. So as I was showing you guys earlier, there's the middle mile that's sort of the highway, but then there's that last mile piece. And those are the businesses that are within your territory. Not just the businesses that are in your territory today, but the ones that will come because now you can jump across the state and connect stuff together. That hasn't been there in a lot of the parts of rural Indiana until today. And so the way it works is whenever someone comes in your territory, let's just say it doesn't even start in your territory. Let's just say SCI picks up a bank branch or a restaurant or something like that, and they happen to have a bank branch in your territory. Well, you don't have a sales team or anything. You're just sitting there, and Accord comes to you and says, "Hey, you got a bank branch there that I need to get connected. Can you give me a price to get from the Accord network, from your backbone to them?" And you guys do a business model and you figure out what it'll cost. If you do fiber to the home, you might already have fiber right there. And you basically put together what that's going to cost and everything. And you figure out how many years it'll take you to earn a return, and you bring that forward. And then Accord basically tries to sell that. And the cool thing is when it travels across the middle mile to get to the other branches, Accord gets paid. So you get your ownership share. But that last mile piece that you get is 100% yours. You're not sharing that with the rest of the Accord ownership. So this is all to tell you that there's more than what's in the feasibility study. And when we did our feasibility study, we really weren't thinking about this, but this is becoming real. So we have a board of 5 that's about to go to a board of 9. And we followed all the documents, we got all the licensing and everything, and we're moving forward. So you keep on going here, so I got more to the story. Okay, so that was that. So Accord is meant to be this entity that does business in the state of Indiana amongst businesses in Indiana, and we can do all of that, and that's great between us, and we can share with others. But there's this other thing. So I don't know if you guys had heard of IFN in the past. Indiana Fiber Network was a company that was created by some telephone companies in the state of Indiana so that they could get connected. And they had a membership in this entity called Inditel. Well, Inditel is a national entity. And so membership in Inditel gets you exposure to national RFPs. So if T-Mobile goes out to site 300 cell phone tower locations around the United States, you have to be a member of Inditel to even be on that radar. Because as a little co-op like we are, if we're not part of a larger organization, they don't even have our maps. They don't see us. They never know we're there for the most part. Might get lucky sometimes. But what we want to do as a core now is we want to get into that Inditel membership side so that when you're a part of Inditel and you're working with a member of Inditel, stuff starts coming to you. You're not even trying. And now you just got to figure out, you got to put forward a bid and figure out if you want it or not. And then basically if that entity, in this case it'd be Accord, wins the RFP, then they're going to be interfacing with you to get it done. So in order to get that national, what happened was the companies that owned IFN sold it about a year ago. And in doing that, IFN had the membership to Inditel. So when they sold IFN to Zayo, they lost that membership. So they no longer had those ties to be recognized nationally. So what has happened recently, and the thing that really kind of drove Accord forward, was ComNet out of Ohio started talking to some of these telephone companies, and they realized, hey, we got to get these relationships back. And so ComNet out of Ohio came in and propped up a company called HoosierNet within the state of Indiana. And HoosierNet, that map using, can you go back to that map we were looking at earlier, the blue and red? Okay, so HoosierNet is those telephone companies, many of them that used to be members of IFN, and those are the red islands. So HoosierNet's getting propped up at the same time that Accord is coming into formation. So you start to see where it might make sense for the two of us to work together. So that's where we are. As of today, our board approved to buy a 4% ownership share in HoosierNet, and now we're going to get together with them, and the red dots and the blue are going to work together to figure out how we can do business together. All the while maintaining our independence as Accord. So you get that set up, you start getting the national stuff just starts happening. And so that's the idea. Again, this kind of thing where you gotta be there. You gotta be part of a larger organization, and a lot of stuff falls out. So the really nice thing about it is if you guys go into fiber to the home, there's no extra cost, really. I mean, you bring forward 2 of your strands that you already built, and then you pay your $10,000 to get in. Now, there are going to be times where we need to tie the systems together, right? So there's some cost to that. And so we're going to get our members to basically, one thing we're doing is one for the federal grant funds. There's middle mile grant funds right now. And if we can get those ties could be 70% paid for. So that's what we hope to get. Some of the ties are already made, some of them are not. So that's the piece that our membership in Accord has an opportunity to invest in that. It's optional. You can choose to invest or not. When you invest in a tie, there's a certain dollar value to that tie, which will help increase your ownership share in Accord. So it always comes back to if you spend money, you're increasing your ownership share, increasing what you get paid when things roll out the other side. But the key to this is it's something that you can be a part of, that it might be a home run, but your risk is really small. You make the decision to go into fiber to the home and you can make that leap. This is something that's there waiting for you. So I guess let's go on and see where we end up here. I don't entirely remember. So the idea is for HoosierNet and Accord to work together. So that's basically it. So that's what Accord is. Accord is meant to be something that is shared between all of us electric co-ops. It's there for our benefit. It's doing the right thing for the right reasons. We're not making a third party rich. This is a tool for all of us to use. And we're here to help any way we can as you guys make this decision moving forward. Happy to answer any questions you have.
The 21 members that you have now, I'm assuming that's RMCs and the telephone company?
Yes, we have 3 telephone cooperatives who are part of Accord now, a 4th that has a membership with a partnership with an electric cooperative. So they're trying to figure out, do they want to join as a single organization or do they want to join separately? So that would make 4 telephone co-ops. There are only 8 in the state. So of the 8, we probably have 7 that are a good possibility of joining us. We just haven't had conversations yet.
As every REMC that ran fiber joined.
So out of the 21 who have run fiber, we have 19. So we have 2, one that, so we have 2 that have told us no. And it's just because they're, for whatever reason, the one of them is working closely with another entity. We haven't had a chance to talk to that other entity yet. It's sort of like that other entity's kind of driving the project. So and they're in the northern part of the territory. So we need to get to them and talk to them. So it's not necessarily a hard no. Then down in the south, Orange County, we've been talking to them since the very beginning, working together, but they sit in a particular place where maybe today they don't necessarily need an Accord because they're in a really favorable place. And that's okay. And we're just keep working together, even if they're not a member of Accord, it's still electric co-op, and we support each other very closely. So, who knows? Maybe someday it becomes something that they decide to do. So we're trying to keep the door open to that, should they change their mind.
James, what kind of security risks are there with having this integrated network? And are there any? I don't know. I'm pretty naive.
No, there really aren't. I mean, if you protect it as we should, it's fiber, so very difficult to tap into fiber to do anything. I mean, from a cyber standpoint, it's not hard to protect. Oh, the other thing I didn't mention is the 2 GNTs, Hoosier Energy, Wabash Valley Power. There's a great chance that they will be a customer of Accord, and they will participate in Accord in some way. We're trying to come up with what that looks like. It's a little different for them, but I've been having lots of conversations with Hoosier Energy to help them, because obviously they've got the whole footprint on the transmission side, but they need to bring data back and they need to be able to control. We're all building fiber. They agree that, hey, it would make sense for us to figure out a way to pay for some access to your fiber rather than pay someone else. So now we're trying to work through what that all looks like to get them communications.
So would Accord ever invest in building the fiber in territories that aren't being served, or they're going to rely on solely the co-ops?
So basically, if we've got, let's just say we've got a 20-mile path that we could make and connect up to, so within let's just give you an example. To go from SCI's territory down to RTC Communications down in Davies, Martin County, might need a 35-mile straight shot to get that connected. So what we're going to do is, in an instance like that, we'll go to the UDWI. It's going through their territory and say, hey, UDWI, here's your chance to maybe get some fiber at a discount. Because if we can get grant funding, maybe you get a 70% discount. And now they're interested. So they signed up as an associate member, which means they don't have fiber, but they want to be at the table for that very conversation. So now we come to them, and now they might be able to get a third or a half of their backbone built as part of what we're trying to do. And so it would give them an opportunity to invest. Say they spend $2 million. Well, $2 million is a pretty small dip compared to 60 million they might have been looking at. And now they've got fiber on their system that they can start to use to manage their electric system. And then they're working with us and others to get their members served.
James, can you explain the different types of memberships, what the differences are between?
Sure. Right now there are 2, a member and an associate member. Member is someone who either has fiber already, wants to be a part of a group, and that's $10,000, or someone who does not yet have fiber, but has a pretty good idea they want to build fiber, and they want to be at the table because they're ready to go. They're ready to invest in something. And a lot of those are more of the backbone investment type. They don't necessarily want to do fiber to the home, but they need that backbone to feel like they've prepared themselves for the future. That's the number one thing you got control of right now. We don't know what all the controls are gonna look like for all the aggregating and stuff in the future that we might need to do for all this stuff that happens. That technology keeps changing. We're not sure where that's gonna land. But what we know for sure is if you've got a good communication system, the rest of it's easy. But if you don't, it takes time to get that thing built, right? If you've already got that in place, you're a long way down the road toward being prepared for the future. And we don't know what the timeline of that new world's gonna be, but it's the best thing you can do to prepare. So members fall in that group. Associate members have no fiber. And originally they went through a feasibility study, and along the way they got really tired of talking about fiber. It kind of became a 4-letter word and they trashed it and moved on, right? Well, after hearing some of these conversations, their ears are perking up and they're like, yeah, we want to be back at the table, right? So when you go through this grant funding applications and stuff, we won't be sitting there. So if something is near us or coming across us, we might go think about getting into it and spending $4 million, because that's a whole lot easier for us to swallow than the 40 million we might be looking at.
So you referenced Henry Street several times in your presentation. Is that like the location of the Magic Factory?
Loud.
So that is the regional hub for all fiber in our region in Indiana. Henry Street is the place to be. And so we built our tie to there. Accord now has 2. We'll eventually have more ties to Henry Street. If you want to do things nationally, you got to get to Henry Street in the state of Indiana. So what we're looking at is everybody southeast and west of us was SCI. I was looking at us saying, hey, can you get me a Henry? And we're like, yeah, we can. And now that's changed to Accord again. And so all the assets that we have and we've invested in, we're turning those strands over. Not all the assets, but the strands over to Accord. We're running we're sitting in the catbird seat right there. All that business is now going to Accord because we took the approach of let's do the right things for the right reasons. Let's do something that benefits us all. Let's leave a legacy. Let's make Indiana the most connected state. So instead of being small-minded and having a very short-term view, being sort of selfish, we've always been looking to figure out how we can tie everybody together and help out. So figure out how we can make money together, turn around and push that money back into our electric systems and make us a better co-op. For our co-op, we got to get to a better financial spot before we can be the kind of co-op we want to be. Like there are certain things we've had to pull back from just because we want to get better. We're up there in rates and we don't want to raise rates. We just got to do some things financially to get to a better spot, turn around and use that and start to do some better things. That's what this is about. So, thanks. Anyone else?
Question?
You use banks as an example of tying together and stuff. What would you charge? It would be a monthly fee that they get charged through Accord, or?
Yeah, they typically pay you for some service over the transport network. There's the last mile piece and then the transport piece. And there you can find fees, like in certain areas there are set fees that are, one good thing about what we're doing is we're a what they call a competitive telephone company, so we can set our own pricing. There are some example prices out there. Give you an example, it might be like $1,300 a month for a bank branch to be tied, and that's what would go in. And like 800 of it might be to the last mile, and 500 of it might go to work. Just to give you an idea.
So it all sounds extremely positive, almost too good to be true. So what's the negative?
Really, the negative would be, I don't know. I don't know what the negative is. I guess the negative would be if somebody had a big problem with us doing this and try to get in our way and but I can tell you that we have lots of conversation with the governor's office. We have lots of conversation with the lieutenant governor, and they're all about it. Like, obviously, right? If you think about the governor's message, right? Next level connections, connecting Indiana. Well, many of us have received next level connections grant funding from the state. And so we use that to build our fiber to the home networks. Well, now what we're showing is electric cooperatives and telephone cooperatives. The great thing about investing in us is we continue to invest, right? So they put their money in us, and that was stage one. We got high-speed internet out to the residents. Now we're actually connecting in the end. So now there's a positive business aspect to it. So the whole state of Indiana now becomes the most connected state. I mean, that's a pretty good story to tell. So your investment that you made through Next Level Connections just keeps paying off over and over and over. That,
So the governor answers your phone calls now.
yeah, so. So that would be my hope. Just to have people maybe know who you are when you, yeah, that would be good.
Well, James, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for making the drive over here.
Yes.
We always, every time to Hoosier, I look at your right of way and I'm like, how you got it clean through those types of woods is sometimes.
Yeah, well, the only ultimate answer is to put that stuff underground. These storms absolutely wipe us out everything.
Yeah.
Too many trees. So
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
thanks, guys. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, you bet. Take care.
Is there any other questions?
Yeah. We will continue on with the agenda, CEO update.
All right, so just to give you a little bit of update from April, obviously participated in the Hoosier board meeting, the Hoosier managers meeting. Every year, I do one-on-ones with all employees, so I think I'm about halfway at this point. Through those, we also had a closeout session. So one of the things that we did this year was this energy leadership training, one-on-one sessions with employees. We actually had a closeout session with Sarah, our facilitator. And then the last thing it's been consuming us is just preparing for the member event coming up here in June. I want to give some project updates. So number one is the meter pole strategy. So we've completed the rules and regs. Got that in the system. You guys approved it, so we're getting my staff to approve it. It's going through approvals now. I've been working with Aaron on the member contracts. So there are two different contracts depending on if it's just a transfer of ownership or if it's a transfer of ownership with payment arrangement. We have a solution sheet that we filled out, which is what our contractor will use to kind of document the communication with the member and ultimately to get the member signature and then document the time. We've created the process. Crystal's team is heavily involved as far as how we get from a solution to basically handing over work order. That's all developed. I've made about half the phone calls to the electricians locally. Dale, thanks for, Dale gave me one for down in his area. Basically just prepping them. I actually had a very interesting call today with one of our local electricians. They're having a hard time getting materials. And their only worry is, yeah, okay, you guys want to do this many poles and we can't get, the materials to be able to do it. So one thing they asked was, is there any way that you guys would be able to order this stuff for us? And so I'm going to have Eric is on vacation, but when he gets back, I'm going to have him look at and see if we got any leverage to bulk buy some of the stuff that the electricians would need, and we can figure out how we deal with that. That was one good piece of information. And then last, the contractor agreement, I think we got that kind of all figured out. So meter poles are moving. We're going to do 10 within 7 weeks. And hopefully based upon that 10, we'll know a lot more information as far as how many do we think we're going to get done this year to the end of the 100 poles that we have out there. So I think we've made a lot of progress on this. Next is pole replacements. So the 2021, so the stuff that was rejected last year is actually out for bid. It's been out for about a week now. So we're waiting. I think actually we just got some information in on the winning bid on that, but anyways, it's moving along. The prior to last year, so the older ones prior to 2020 or older are all completed now. So we're working on the last year's. And a good question came up during one of our operation meetings was, eventually, the idea is that we get back into our crews doing the pole replacements. And so we made a strategic call so we wanted to bring in contractors to do these pole replacements to get caught up. And then we wanted to basically bring it back in-house. In 2020, we had like 53 that were left over from last year. And so we knew those 53 were going to get a very good price if we didn't include 2021s. So that's why we are going into 2021 and possibly 2022, where we're having the contractors do it. And it really comes back to the meter poles, right? So we want to free up our crews to be able to do these meter poles as soon as we start getting the solution sheets by the members. 6 is spare transformers. So this has been, I don't know if the right word is, but the costing that we thought, and I briefed you all on it last month, we've got everything from a single phase order. So the whole idea here is that we know the lead times they keep getting worse and worse and worse every month. The cost is getting worse and worse because of the materials being used. So the idea was that we wanted to up our inventory of single phase and 3-phase transformers. We've gotten all the single phase ones ordered. They weren't as bad as far as lead times and costs as our 3-phase. So the 3-phase ones came in at I think it was $1.2 million. And I think we had like,
I was even cutting some of them out.
yeah, and I think we had like 300 budget total. So what we ended up doing was making a call to buy some, I don't want to say used because they're not really used, they're reconditioned. We don't have all those ordered yet. Eric's got a few of them ordered, but the reconditioned, the price, I mean, we were seeing 50.
It was a third, Chris and I and Brett sat down and we calculated based off what we thought the energy efficiency difference was between a 30-year-old transformer and one brand new. And we can afford to pay the extra energy charge over the next 30 years for what the new transformers cost. So refurbished looks great.
Right now, new transformers, 3-phase could be anywhere from 50% increase up to 150, depending on what
The
type it is.
2,500 KVAs were 3 times the cost of what they were 10 years ago.
So anyways, the good news is we are moving. I would say that the single phase and 3-phase, once we get them all ordered, it's going to be over the next 2 years to get the inventories that we expect to get in.
And I am going to try to have in the plant an increase in that based off, we'll have a better idea of, by June, we'll have a pretty good idea, I think, of what we're going to get this year and what we're not. So I think we are going to get quite a few of the single phase later on this year. So we'll be good there, but I'd 3-phase, some maybe, some not, depends on what they are. So we'll be up.
Next one is a tactical project that we had to do. It's Crystal's project. It was to retire capital credits. We used to use it, or NISC used to use COBOL. We had to transfer over to Java. So that is actually a completed project. Just reporting out on that. Operation building. So we had planned visits to some other co-ops around us to look at that have newer operations buildings to find out what's worked, what didn't work, to start creating our list of here's the needs, here's the wants. It got canceled because we had an outage the time that it was constructed, and then we had this other outage, so we're still waiting to get that scheduled. One thing I would, and I don't know that we need to decide it right now, but one thing I do want to have conversation on is I think it'd be very, very helpful to have a board representation on this committee. I'm not on the committee, but it is, I think we got 2 or 3 linemen, Pat, obviously, Chris. There's some other Matt's on it, but I do think it would be helpful to have a board representation. So I don't know at what point, but I would say probably the sooner the better, honestly. At first I was thinking, well, let us do the trip. We can come back and do sort of get the board member involved. But honestly, even maybe the trip would be worthwhile. So at some point, Steve, you guys probably had to have a conversation as to who that person is, but I think it would be ultra helpful to have board representation. Tree refusals. So I wanted to talk about this one because we just added it. When we first started the reclaim process, the escalation process was if the member basically was refusing, it would go to the foreman of the contractor. The foreman of the contractor would meet with the member, go through why we're doing what we're doing. If that person didn't get anywhere, then it would go to Chris, or to our meter techs that are kind of taking over the right of way stuff. If they couldn't get anywhere, then it escalated to me, Pat. And the idea is that Pat and I would go out, talk to the member about what we're doing, give them some options. And that was one thing we were big on is, you know, hey, if you want to go underground, if there's an opportunity to do that, here's what your cost would be to do that. And we were actually really, really successful at the start of it. I'd say probably 90% of the members that were refusing at the beginning, once we and Pat went out and talked to them, we were able to get their sort of approval and check on the sheet. So we even had one where we quoted them basically doing underground to not get rid of the tree, and they came back and said, just cut the trees. It's not worth that. What we're finding is we're getting way behind. That process isn't working, so we got to do business a different way. So I met with the team. What we decided was we have a process, which is basically a spreadsheet. And the new process is going to be, if the foreman doesn't get anywhere with them, it's going to go to Chris and Chad. So it'll go to the two meter guys that are working right away. They're basically going to look at it from a Google standpoint, or they're going to go out and visit this site to see, are there any opportunities? Because there are some opportunities where we've had where we saved a good example is we had a member that has a huge row of like 150 foot pine trees all the way down this drive. And we had a wire that basically followed those trees. You couldn't even see the wire. It was going to cost us a lot more to actually cut those trees down than it was to drop them underground. So we actually saved the company money by going underground. Otherwise, we would have to cut the trees down. So when there's opportunities like that, and we can justify it, I want Chris to take a look at that and to bring those forward, because those are the ones that we can go to the member and say, hey, it may be you have to pay a little bit of money depending on, because we go get quotes on this stuff, right? So if there's that one I was just talking about where there's a tree line row, we would go get a quote from our tree trimmers. And the reason we do that is because if it has to come off the bid, that's what we use, or we'll just get a time and material, depends on what scope that was under. And then we compare that to what the cost would be to go underground. So Chris and them is going to go out and look at, is there an opportunity? If there isn't an opportunity, it's going to go straight in the spreadsheet that he'll put in there. And it basically, then it will go to Crystal's folks. We are creating a letter. Rachel's actually working on it now, which basically is going to say, sorry, I skipped a step. Crystal's folks will get into our system because we have all of our easements now scanned into the system. So it's very easy for us to go in, find the easement under that member's account, and we'll look at what's on there. Some of the older easements aren't 15 foot like our easements are today, right? And what we don't want to do is get into a case where we're sending a letter telling them we're going to cut their trees at 15 foot and the easement's 10 foot. So she's going to do a search on that, and then there'll be a blank letter that we're basically, that we're constructing now, that Crystal's folks will fill out the information, we'll send this letter. This letter basically says why we're doing what we got to do, what the easement says, we'll attach the easement in there, and we're saying basically within 30 days, we'll be out to cut the trees. So that's sort of the new process. Again, I don't know how many we have. Do you know roughly?
I'm on like 89, and I still have several pages.
Yeah. And so the problem is as those tree refusal list gets longer and our crews move off of, the tree trimming crews move off of those lines, you're in jeopardy of not getting those cut. Because what they're not going to want to do is let's say they're cutting the L1, and then the next year they're going to the N1, they're going to charge us to go back to that L typically, unless it's within a certain amount of time. So again, that's a new process that we're doing. We believe we have to do it, otherwise we're not going to be able to keep up. I can tell you that one of our neighboring co-ops does it very similarly. The only thing that's different is once they send a letter, they say you have 30 days, we'll be out there in 30 days. They take a sheriff on every one of them. So I don't know that we're going to have to do that. We'll see as we go. And then last is our risk management, which I'm going to go over here in a minute. One of the risks we identified is this MISO max gen alert and really load curtailment. So if you look at our plan, it basically says create some communication to the members to tell them to be energy efficient, and then make phone calls create a team and make phone calls to our industrials, telling them if they can shed load. This is to create a better plan. We are setting up meetings with the industries to see what types of loads they can shed. We're also looking at doing a survey to all of our members to find out what gen sets we have out in the system. There are large hog barns that have backup generation that we may be able to utilize during a load shed event. We also have a generator out here. I know our load here isn't very big, but so anyways, we're going through and creating that MISO Max Gen. It's a load curtailment plan. Questions on any of the projects? Anyone? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and jump into the metrics if that's okay. So April, back up to April, our median temperature was about 2.8% cooler than our 5-year average. So you can see we're just barely under the 5-year average as far as temperature. The heating degree days, so for right now, we look at heating degree days and then shortly we'll be showing both. But right now, cooling degree days doesn't really show up much on the graph, so I don't normally show that. But as far as heating degree days, we were 5.4% above our 5-year average. So again, it was a little bit cooler and our heating degree days were a little bit higher, which drives energy. So if you look at April here, basically pretty much in line, it's 1.2 higher than our 5-year average. And then from a demand standpoint, actually pretty relatively flat. This was our year-to-date sales. So these are year-to-date sales. Last month, so we were overall under our budget or under 3.35%, and we grew that to 3.53. And we'll go through those details here in a minute. If you look at, again, KWH retail sales within the month back to the budget, you can see residential for this last month was just a tad, basically flat. Commercial was 9.2 under budget. Industries is an interesting one because we have two that are really dragging down the average and one or two actually that are actually bringing up the average. As you can see, we're about 2.4 above this month. And then in transmission, you can see there's a lot of part shortage issues and days down, ships down there. This is going to look different. Enjoy this picture. So this is our daily SAIDI. Essentially, if it goes over that red line, you're considered something has statistically happened, which is classified as a major storm. So honestly, in April, it was relatively quiet through the month. Of course, that's a lot different next month. We did go over TMIT. I think this is 30, and I think it ended up being in the hundreds. So it definitely will be classified as a major storm. Lost consumer hours for April. So this is April right here. You can see we're well under the average. And then number of outages, again, it was actually a pretty quiet April. And then the largest contributors to outages were trees other, which is going to be a very common theme this next month. Questions on anything from a company metric standpoint? I didn't show the AR 90 days past. You're going to see here in a minute the write-offs are record breaking. I think prepaid, the prepaid program and Crystal's folks and their process is really, really paying off. Our 90 days, 30 days, 60 days is all well below our 5-year average. Line losses were, this month it was a little better than our 5-year average, but really pretty close, honestly. Other than that, is there any other questions
Can you
on?
go back to the last consumer hours by cause? I meant to ask, and I should have emailed ahead of time. Is that March correct? Did we lose over 1,160 small animals? I don't think that's correct.
Oh, wait a minute.
And I meant to email, I just saw that. Is that calculation right?
So this is lost consumer hours.
Total hours.
Yeah. That bird.
We
So
lost
if
that
you-
many? I'm sorry, we lost 1,100 hours?
Yeah, that was the bird flying into the AMR. That
Oh.
was a sub, so when you.
I was just looking at the number of hours compared to prior.
No, it's a great question. Yard bird.
It's been a big bird.
Actually, a funny story, we, during our Saturday outage, the guys call in when they restore it, they'll tell you code, and they usually know the codes by, hey, it's 5420. If there's actually a code in their list that says a cow. So at some point or another, we must have had problems with cows creating power outages. I ain't sure how that works, but
A lot of hamburger.
he did, he called it and go, please put that under large cow. Kind of fun. Good question, but that was the AMI. So in other words, if you get 500 members out for 15 minutes, it's going to rack up the hours. Really.
And March just looks so,
Yeah, March was a rough month. If you go back and look at lost consumer hours. Yeah, you can see it right here.
May will go up as well.
May will be up, I'll have to read.
do we have a new collar from
Scaling will change.
Make it black.
Scaling will change for sure. Good question, Suzanne. Any other? Matt and I had an interesting conversation about sales to budget today, and this was a tricky year to budget because we were like, what's the industry's going to do, right? I mean, we came off of this COVID thing, and so some of the industries we put at a normal, some of them we tried to reduce down, and it was just a tough year to try to predict the sales here to budget.
And we did back off a lot of stuff in the first half of the year. So if they don't get going.
Yeah. The budget actually has an increase halfway through the year in sales.
Jenny and I, when we looked through it, we kind of thought, well, we'll still have some lingering effects, but hopefully by mid-year, things will be back to normal. I don't know if that'll be the case or not yet, so.
Yeah, I mean, we've got one industry that's this, I mean,
They're running full speed. and that's
15, 20% above what we had budgeted for. And then we've got some that are below 15, 20% that are just having part issues and things like that. We did get confirmation, I'm not gonna say the name, but we did get confirmation from one of the industries that they're every Friday that they were gonna be shipped. So we will see that. But again, that's why rates are set the way they are. Rates are constructed in the matter of it should hang out as far as gross margins because your power is good, right? So. Any other questions?
All right, thanks, Brad. We good? Yeah. Go on, everybody.
I wanted to start, last week I attended the new CFO orientation in Washington DC. So I did want to tell everybody I did go. I thought it was well worth my trip. So I've been to trainings where you think, why did I waste my time here? This was a good one. So. First, the statement of operations, as Brett mentioned earlier, the things that look at probably the most is gross margins. We're under about $86,000 per year to date. I probably won't get real excited about that unless it keeps going up. Same thing, controllable expenses, that's over by 51,000. As you can see, that's all in the maintenance. That's all right away. They've been getting more done faster than expected. And then the other number that I look at pretty religiously is our operating margins. So, and that was one of the things I brought up at the conference is based off how, so long as we're there, it'll be okay. If that number starts to grow, then we will have to talk about things. So.
This will look different after the storm. Yes, it's not I don't think it's as near as bad as what 18 may have looked like, but we did have.
Last year, the storm didn't make as big an impact on financials as I thought it would.
Yeah.
But it will cost us money. You know, we don't know exactly what everything will be yet, but.
We'll have all the invoices in.
Yeah. It'll be in the tens of thousands of dollars.
And it had to be on a weekend, right? You know, Sundays are different pay scale than Saturdays.
Any questions on the statement of operations? Next, we have balance sheet. In general, things are progressing as they are. I mean, there's not really anything earth-shattering change there month to month.
It's pretty small, isn't it?
Yeah, probably we'll do it next time. Cash flow, you can see we started to pay our open work orders. We've paid some of those, so you can see our cash has dropped. So once we get, as we get invoices and they're approved, we pay them. But once the project's done, then we close them out, and that's when they'll show up on the plant schedule. So we did a lot of work this last month. A lot of things came through, a lot of things got paid, so. This gross margins, you can see that we're there on the top left. You can see we're pretty well maintaining where we normally are. So we're a little bit under budget, but we're doing okay. And then on the right, you can see by class that we are under, but it's not terrible.
One thing I think we're missing in the metric, and I don't know if it's a financial metric or a company metric, is our, and I'm not sure how we'll show it yet, but our tracker. So with our tracker being a little different, it's not completely a pass-through, right? So it essentially is affected by obviously what Hoosier's tracker is, but it's also affected by your sales. So what it's doing is it's basically saying, I know what's in your base rates for power. I know what Hoosier's tracker is. So I'm going to see what your actual sales were, multiply that by what what your energy rate is in that tracker, and true it up. And so and then to true it up, it's basically saying, okay, we're either over collecting in power or under collecting. And it takes that number. So let's just say, for instance, we're under collecting by $100,000 on power cost. It's going to take that $100,000 and it's going to look at, okay, the forecasted sales, right? And it's going to distribute that across that equally. And that's how we come up with what the tracker is. I tell you all that because what it means is it's behind a little bit, right? So it's
flipped from negative to positive.
And it went from negative to positive, and it's a little bit lagging. So I would assume that these gross margins, as we get closer to the flip on the tracker and the sales, will start to climb a little higher, is my point. I think the gross margins will get better as we get through the year based upon just the tracker alone. So with us being under in sales, it affects the tracker essentially. So what I'm going to try to come up with is a metric to show you sort of that lag and what it's doing. So that because to me, it's hard to understand, okay, in industrials without IPT, we expected at this point in the year to get a gross margin of $232,000. That was what was in budget. We're at 205. How much of that is contributed to just the lag in this tracker? Is it all of it? Is it half of it? So we're going to try to work on developing something to somewhat show that. That's it.
Any additional questions? Right. The next item is the broadband next steps. And I know that you have some information that you.
Yeah, so I submitted a memo. Basically, the memo talks about what the broadband scope looks like from our business case and feasibility. Kind of goes through what the benefits of doing it are, pros. And I attached some things in there from all the other things and some explanation to the benefits of doing broadband. The next step for us is not to approve or disapprove a fiber project, obviously. The next step really is, so we have two big grant cycles coming up. One's Reconnect and one's BEAD. BEAD is the big one that's tied to the infrastructure bill, infrastructure bill. That one is going to be in July-ish timeframe, and I believe Reconnect is going to be like July-ish timeframe too. So both of those, you're going to have to be ready to start doing grants by June-ish.
Is that due in July?
They're going to be due in July. with payout of those grants being towards the end of this year. So what I did here is I went to NRTC, so that's who we've been working with on this feasibility, and I got an estimate from them on what the next step is. So the next step is, number one, you got to do engineering work to create a BOM, because you have to have a BOM in order to write the grants. And then you have to have grant writers that are actually writing the grants. These are estimates based upon what NRTC told me. We've got to go out and competitively bid it, right? I mean, there's a lot of people that are writing grants for these nowadays, a lot of people that can do the engineering work. So these are just estimates based upon doing some competitive bidding. But you can see there, I asked the question of why is there 2 engineering fees for both of these? And it's basically just broken out the different requirements that BEAD asks for that are different than Reconnect. A lot of the stuff that you're going to do for Reconnect in the engineering work, that can be reused for BEAD, but BEAD asks for something a little different. So there's some additional engineering work. That's why there's 2 engineering works there. And then you got the grant writing there. Originally, I thought it would make sense for us to do this make-ready audit study, because one thing that scares me the most is the make-ready costs that are in our business case. We went on the higher side of the average, but I know from looking at our system, I don't know if that's going to be enough to cover it or not. So at some point, I don't think we need to do it right now, but at some point we need to shore that up to make sure what that is. So anyways, my recommendation is to move forward with that cost sitting there, to apply for a Reconnect and BEAD grants. Because let's be honest, our entire business case is dependent on getting that, I think it was 13 million in grants. And I don't think much less than that is, at least in my opinion, is a go. So I think you got to go after these grants, and we won't apply for grants that are going to require a commitment. We'll make sure that we apply for the grants that essentially you can give the money back. So I don't think this is an ask to move forward with the broadband. It's an ask to kind of go to that next step.
Thoughts? Clay?
What do you want my thoughts on this point or the whole broadband thing?
It can be a combination of both, but
My concern is without the grants, there's gotta be something here with that. And it's gonna be so if there's a $13 million grant, we match 13 on the stuff, right, or not?
Say that again. Some of them I think do have a match requirement. But I mean, you're going to need the big number that we talked about, right? I mean, I think we can say it, what the cost is, if you guys are all good with it. I mean, coming out of feasibility, it's not necessarily confidential. I mean, it's a $42 million build, right? And so 13 million makes that 29.
But wasn't it 66 if we go outside of that they thought was more feasible?
Yeah, but our recommendation was not.
And to go,
I think it's something like what James said and what Southeastern's doing. Focus on your territory. Get your territory done first. Then if there's opportunities outside of your territory, then maybe
66.
it was like 60 something.
Two.
That's why, did I put in here? Yeah, I just put our focus, our recommendation would be if we did go forward with a fiber project, which isn't what I'm requesting, would definitely be go after our territory. Don't do the revenue up. Don't do the take rate at a 60, what was it? 67%. And it's essentially, you got to get the grants. And if you can't get the grants, it's a no go, essentially.
And what he stated earlier, and just my thoughts, the feasibility study turned me more negative than positive toward it. Plus the fact there were a lot of missing, I won't say missing links, missing information on people using other internet services and our REMC members. Because I think the number one thing for me would be the needed or the want by our members. I think that we're kind of late to the game on that, but I wish we would have done that 6 months ago before we started this. How many of our members would be interested, or how many have sufficient internet services now that they wouldn't even consider it?
Yeah, so there's kind of a mix. So part of their feasibility was to look at what's offered, right? And they showed the map that had on there where folks are considered underserved. That's one piece of it. The other piece of, so we did a study years and years ago. I don't remember what the data was on it. But the other point is if you do a survey, you're going to get members that we already have members that call in today and know how far we are. And I'm like, but we haven't even applied for grants. The purpose of me saying that is if we do a survey, we're going to have to realize that folks will expect or sort of think that we are going forward with the project, with the FIBRA project. We can do it. It's not a problem.
Jason and I had a conversation the other day about this, and it was, my concern is the amount of money that it's gonna get invested to find out that it's not gonna be cost effective. That is a
It's the pro or the con.
threat. And people say, oh yeah, it's great until they find out how much it's gonna cost. They're going, well, I really don't want it that bad. That's my,
Now, remember, the cost that we set this at is this, we didn't choose the revenue up. So we will compare to the cost of something equivalent or actually better as far as speeds and things. And I think when they look at so when they showed that, and I wish I had brought that, but the map of underserved, I think that's where our bread and butter's at. So you've got a lot of folks right now that are in our area that they have access, but the access is at a really, really slow rate, right? So their speeds and up, download are terrible.
Yeah, because there was two categories. There was unserved and underserved on the chart. Betwixt the two of them, our service area was a large portion.
I almost asked James while he was standing here because everybody that I asked that has done a feasibility project, hey, to get 13 million on a $42 million project, they think that's not even a problem. Quite honestly, I've been told over 20. If you can't get half of it, you should be able to get half.
But we don't have anything in writing. It's just
No.
speculations.
Complete speculation.
It's a gamble.
Gamble.
It's a true gamble.
It's a dart throw.
Feasibility
$5
study.
million, it's a home run. If you get $10 million, it's a strikeout.
I mean, let's be honest,
I don't think
here is we spend this much money and we find out that
we don't get anything.
we don't get anything for
I
it.
don't think there's anybody sitting in this room that's going to support this fiber project if we don't get
Any grant.
$8 million of grant.
I wouldn't support it if we don't get 13 million in grants.
So in order to find that out, we have to apply for the grant.
That's unfortunate, but that's where we're at.
Along those lines on the grant line, is there any opportunity to, and I don't know what the process would be, but to enhance our chances by having economic development, school system, healthcare system?
So there's letters of support that I have a template for that we would use.
Well, but is there any opportunity for them to get grant money that they could contribute to this cause?
There is, yes. And I'm going to start meeting with those. In fact, I got a meeting tomorrow with some of the commissioners that are on the RDOT, because we have RDOT money that was given to the city and county, and fiber fits into that. So I'm going to start meeting and I actually was going to, because I had asked Steve, can I go ahead and do that? And it didn't align with me being able to get a presentation done for them with the preface of our board has made no commitments. This is just trying to turn every stone out there. Right? So my plan is, and part of James's, everybody that I've heard has said, you need to get with your EDC. You need to get with everybody that's on this list here that's impacted by this, you need to meet with to see
If they'll give us money.
if they'll give us money, if there's grants, all those types of things. Tax abatements, mean, tax abatements alone could be 20 million in savings over 20 years.
And we haven't met with any of those to confirm.
Because that's gonna be assessed on our property taxes if we hang this fiber.
And I can tell you in southeastern, what county is,
Ripley.
yeah, so Ripley is doing tax abatement forever if you do it in the next 3 years. And then after that, it graduates to like 10 years, 20 years, 10 years. And I've got all the documentation. So my answer is yes, I'm going to be going to them. I mean, I agree. I think we all can agree that if we don't get the grant dollars, it's a no-go. I mean, it just doesn't make sense, right? And I think the steps of increasing revenue is going to kill you. I don't want to just make up some arbitrary take rate to make the business case look okay. And then the third one was wireless mix. That didn't make any sense. And then the last, I can't remember, but yeah, go into the other triple. Okay,
That's not-
we want a 60-some million dollar project.
And I'm like everybody, I think, most everybody else, I mean, the grant money, but I think this cost is almost our due diligence.
It is.
It's what we almost have to incur to make an informed decision on what we're gonna do or not. gonna do.
Yeah, because then if you don't get 13 million, it's really easy.
Yeah.
It's very
Can't
simple.
afford it. Period.
We have the business case to support that decision.
They're calling 5 million turns. Hey, let's start tomorrow. If you get 25 million, let's start
Yeah,
that.
it'll be fine. I'm in.
Yeah.
How much was the feasibility study? Do you, am I ballpark?
25.
25? Basically, we have 150,000 to determine if we can afford it.
2 million.
Sorry.
150,000, decide if we can afford 40 million.
42 million.
Is this like who NRTC has recommended us do? Do they recommend the Reconnect 4 beat, or how do we determine those companies?
What's the grants?
Those are the grant names, sorry.
Okay, so how do we determine, so we are paying directly the 125,000 to who?
That will be determined based upon competitive bids.
Engineering firm.
We don't have. Okay,
These are just estimates.
These are just estimates.
I was, didn't know if I was missing the bids or,
I would suggest if we do go forward, you bound this number by a percentage and then
So you have time to get those bids and have this done for July application.
if we don't make a decision tonight, no,
That's the timing.
we're already going to be really, really tight. I'm not going to sign up for this dollar amount though, unless they can commit to getting them submitted. That will be part of the agreement, for sure.
When I was at the CFO conference, I did talk that there'd be a lot more federal money coming next year too. But they thought that would probably be January of 23 before it was all. And that'll be more on the backbone type stuff for a grid connectivity. And so more or less from what I was told, there's two, we spent about 2 hours talking about broadband when I was there. There's 2 tracks that you can get money from. You can get money from the backbone, from the Department of Energy, and you can get money for broadband from infrastructure. So you got multiple places you can hold your hands out, just how much you get.
Now do remember, I mean, so these, let's say, and I'm just speculating here, right? Let's say we go in and do the reconnect and we do the beat and we get 8 million. I doubt we're going to get the 13 this first round. But if you go into these first round and we get 1 million, we know it's probably not a good idea to go forward. But there is a second set of, I mean, there will be another round next year of both of these essentially.
And we'll have to do this all again, but we've already, this.
No, well, no. The engineering work will all be done. We will have to do grant writing.
Yeah, application.
So when he was talking about 42, did he have these did he already estimate this engineering work then?
Is that within those numbers? Is that what you're asking?
Yes. This is in the business case,
So that's
yes.
42 million.
So it'd be only 40,750. 40 million.
Take that off, start
I
it.
think out that 150.
Oh, yeah.
The engineering work that you're doing for this is the same engineering work you're gonna have to do if you actually did a project. So it's wasted money if you don't go forward, but if you go forward, it's part of the project cost that's already.
One-time thing, whether we get grant money for this fall, we get grant money for the spring of 2023. The engineering work is a one-time thing. We won't have to redo it. It's not like an extra.
High level, yes, but there is more engineering work once you get into, or a lot more. This is just to create a building.
That's in the 40.
So this is to get it to where they'll approve your grant.
Correct.
To actually move forward, you'll have to.
And then our hope, wishful thinking would be the economic development, the schools, the county, et cetera, would also apply for grant that goes toward this money that we could utilize
Or give us money.
or just give us money.
Or enhance our chances of getting more money,
Yes,
their support.
yes.
So I think there's three of them.
If the county throws their support behind us and several more people that'll shovel money at it, I mean, it takes money. We're gonna have to get grants for it. Like Brett said, if we don't get grant money, this is a good point. Yeah, it's not gonna work.
So if you don't get a significant amount of grant money, it's not.
Yeah.
My wishful thinking is we come in around that 20.
But
Oh, yeah.
that would be ideal with,
20 plus. Make a decision a heck of a lot easier.
you said, Orange, they got 60% of their project. So if we were like them, we'd get 30 million. Then it'd be real easy.
So your ask tonight, Brett, is approval for this, of this?
Approval is contingent on competitive bids, and you need to give me some type of,
With the understanding that we're only applying for grants that we can return.
Right.
That's
Correct. Yeah, there are other grant programs out there, but take it or you get penalized.
These already, we can return if we
You
do.
do the returnable ones. If we go forward next year, we'll apply for the other ones too. Because if you're already gonna do it,
Amended then.
you might as well try to go after that too.
So this is basically, we're saying yes or no to go forward with the broadband. Because if we say no,
not committed.
we'll know what grant money's available. So
Right.
inadvertently, we are just making the decision.
Yeah.
Whether we pursue the option,
Not necessarily.
but not necessarily, but pursue the option of putting in broadband.
This is your entry fee.
4-H is cheaper.
Hey, Jeff, are you there?
He's muted.
I am.
I'd
Hard to find the- Pardon?
I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. I mean, I know this has been a big issue for you for a long time and you've done a lot of legwork on it. So I'd appreciate you sharing your thoughts on us and your perspective.
My biggest fear is technology and this being outdated 3 years from now. With Starlink, with the 4G and 5G that's now available in the less than $50 range. I don't think the loyalty is going to be there long term for the amounts we're going to have to charge, is my personal thoughts. The presentation, I was kind of like Suzanne after seeing it, scared me more than what I was before. So
What were your thoughts on the presentation from the Accord?
I, like you, that part sounded almost too good to be true. I personally need more information because if what he's saying, maybe it does make sense to do the backbone, but as of right now, this kind of money makes no sense with the technology that's currently available.
I had to listen to his presentation like 5 times, I'll be quite honest. That's why I brought him tonight, was to kind of first go around to understanding.
I would like to pursue, we have certain areas in our system that doesn't have options that the other areas have. And I'd like to look at the opportunity. Can we get Southeastern? Can we get Jackson County to tie into those areas? Our members get service and we don't have this debt.
So I have had conversations with those folks and I don't know that there's not a hard no. There's definitely, yeah, we're going to get our systems done before we look at your systems, which is going to be years. I'm not saying it's not an option. I'm just saying that that's basically what I heard.
Arnold, your thoughts?
I just don't think it's very feasible. I'm just troubled with how many members already have internet access stuff, even though it's a little slow, are going to pay extra for that fiber. And another thing is that let Accord put that on there. Why are we being a fiber person? We're electric. We're supposed to supply our members electricity. We're not obligated to supply them fiber. And with the numbers, like I say, it's not feasible. And even if you were to get the grant money of 13 million, I mean, that's going to put a burden back on it. And are we going to raise rates to do that?
Actually should go the other way. That's what James was saying.
Yeah.
The fiber business can actually help the electric business.
If we get over,
Clarify last month, because I think it was just a casual statement, but I want to make sure. Could the members that we have that have current internet providers that they're happy with be affected by their REMC bill if we do broadband?
Not unless you deliberately as a board want to do that.
well, they could, if it's wildly successful, we'll have more money. If it's another disaster, we would have less. I mean, they could be impacted in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, there's always the risk. He is right.
I mean, if it's wildly successful like Jackson County, they're going to be able to hold their electric bills down for decades.
You can create an LLC, you can create all these companies to do the broadband business. If it fails, there's no hiding that is definitely on the electric business, right? I mean,
If it, like I said,
not trying to,
if it's wildly successful, I mean, we'll probably start to see it over the next few years, the ones that have been wildly successful. And at the conference, I was there with about 40 people. There was one who said it didn't work well for them. I mean, I'm not gonna, there was 4 or 5 who thought it was the greatest thing since sliced bread. There was one who cursed the day it came in. So
That's true.
So
We hear all the good.
what they did, the guy who cursed it the day it came in, all they did was build to their substations. And they stopped because they had to write off $2 million they wrote off because they did the ring, but then they stopped because they decided, hey, this wasn't going to work for them. Now, he said they may look back into it with all the grants, but as of now, they had stopped.
It didn't work because there wasn't enough people.
I didn't ask enough questions. He just, I didn't ask him a ton of questions. He just, yeah, that was a 4-letter word where I'm from. That was we lost $2 million is that was the statement the guy made.
And every district is different, but the impact it could cause our members who currently have an internet provider that they're happy with and satisfied with the cost and the speed, that's my biggest negative.
if the business would fail from a broadband, it would impact them, yes.
I agree, but that's not the decision that's in front of us tonight.
Correct.
That's where I'm at.
Now, the decision here tonight is just to move.
What we're talking about tonight is to garner information to help eventually make that decision at some point in time, being much more informed than what we are right now. It's all about perspective. You can paint this picture as we sit here right now. And I can argue we're going to get 22 million in grants and you can argue we're going to get 5. And you can't prove you're right and I can't prove I'm right. So I understand the concerns, the decision points, all of this going forward and implementing it. But what are the thoughts about this to be able to make that informed decision? That's what I see near and dear right now. 'Cause I'll go back to the question Suzanne asked, I think at the end of maybe last month's meeting. Should we be in the broadband business? And that's, that initial decision is where I struggle, but I believe that we can't make that decision without at least incurring this. That's my thought for you. Sorry.
The decision could be made for us, right?
Yeah, if it comes back, we can get $3 million fixed.
Yeah.
We're trying. to get it done.
I honestly believe it will be, we're either gonna get more than enough or
Not enough.
good indication that it's not going the right way, in my opinion. Again,
Worst thing of all is to be right in that no man's land.
yeah, that's just,
That would be the worst thing of all.
$7,297.18.
Yeah, that would be the worst case scenario is you're one or the other. If you know, you know, and if you're in that in between, then it gets hard.
So in order to go forward, we need a motion to go ahead and next step.
Steve, would it be possible that we could clear the room and have a director discussion for 10 minutes?
Sure.
there's somebody else. Hey, Jeff, are you on the line twice?
Can you hear me twice?
That means
I have no idea what I'm doing. It's gonna show up as Jeff from Decatur County REMC if it's on there twice.
Well, the only reason we're asking is Jason had asked to have kind of an executive session break for the directors. And there's one on here that says iPad and the other one that says Jeff.
I'm on Jeff's iPad. If I'm on twice, I don't know it. And I'm afraid to turn it off because I'll never get it back. So just turn one of them off and see if I'm still here.
All right, hold on. I'm gonna chat. So, oh, it's Jeannie. She just jumped off.
Okay, we're good then. Thanks, Jeannie.
All right.
Oh my goodness.
It would be an iPad. She would bring.
Hey, it's fine.
I would like that. I think so.
I would put your motion.
Make that. No eye contact.
Okay, we resume. We're back in open session. With a motion.
We just had to do.
I'll make you do it.
Go ahead.
Sure. After discussion, I'll make the motion that we vote to cover the estimated cost that equates to about $20 per member of Brett's ask here to determine the grant writing, what grants are available. I don't know exactly how to word it, but engineering work to make an informed decision for the implementation of broadband. And I know Brett had asked for a margin, plus or minus or something to that effect. Ron held hard to that dollars, and I have no problem with a not to exceed amount, whether it's that amount or percentage.
Did you get on that?
Your dollar amount or percentage you're wanting to say?
I'll say the 125.
No, the percent,
Oh, the-
don't exceed that, or you want to? Because you're kind of like,
You want to
3 or 5% probably. I don't know.
I'll keep
Maybe
it,
3. I mean, honestly, it should be pretty close.
keep it at 3, and if it's a.
Anything above 3, I
Come
get.
back.
And if it's less, I can just go, right? First.
second.
Wait a second. We have a first and a second. Is there any additional discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same.
Aye.
Motion approved. All right. The next item is. Brett. All right, so I submitted a memo. We do a risk management with my team to go through the risk register every quarter. So my team met on March 28th to go over the plan. During this meeting, we reevaluate the current identified risk and identify any new risk. I'm going to go through a few updates that we documented. So we did update. So we had already identified the general transformer lead times and cost. We're moving up. What we decided to do there is we moved the probability from 3 to 6, knowing that it's kind of happened, right? So the probability of the risk has gone up. We've already got a project that we've worked on. You guys already approved it in the budget. So that's just an update. Not having a max. So the next one is not having the max gen curtailment plan. We moved the probability, knowing what the MISO market and what's going on there. We moved that from 3 to 4. And we did add a project, which you guys saw earlier, which is to identify a curtailment plan a little bit better than what's identified today. We closed the 2 8 of construction consistency issues. One was causing member relations. The other one was risk of a lawsuit. If you remember back in 2021, we completed the project, the process improvement project on the work order process. And so we closed those 2 risks. Some new ones. This kind of came about because we have a individual that used to work for us that's now mowing our lawn, considered a contractor per a contract that we per an agreement that we put in place. So the question came up with is, what do you do with someone that is a contract that needs access into the building? Therefore, we are creating Crystal's actually working on a process of how we do that, right? So the risk here is theft, property damage, and then confidential information lawsuit. So again, we added the risk and we are working through it with a new policy, or it'll be an SOP essentially. We already talked about coordinating the rejected meter pulls with members, the fact that we don't have enough resources if it's the #1 priority project. So you guys know where we're heading on that one. AMI transformer failure with no backup. So what's the lead times nowadays for this?
Over a year.
So they're over a year for an AMI transformer. It's a huge cost. So we've identified that and we're sort of working that now. So at this point, a summary, management believes we have mitigations in place to operate at an acceptable risk level. I did not, and I can if anybody wants it, but I did not attach the actual risk register because it's getting rather large, which is good. That's why I just submitted the memo. So questions?
Any comments, questions for Brett?
We skip over the one that says, 228. 20221.
Yeah, I skipped over a couple of them. I can go over all of them if you want.
Was that an issue?
It can be, so let's say and I'm just gonna use me. Let's say I have an Amazon account, Prime account. We don't have one for the company, nor do we need one because we have plenty of people that have Amazon Prime accounts. If I buy something for the company through my Amazon Prime account and I use the company credit card, if you're not careful, it saves that. And then the next purchase I go to, it goes to the credit card. So we've identified that, but honestly, we're going to probably close it out. We have a ton of checks and balances in place that gets caught. The idea was once we were going to actually get an Amazon Prime account, but then it's like, why spend 100 and whatever it is now when everyone has them that we can use? So I think we have the checks and balances in place, is my point. Which other one?
Is there another one you
Was there
had?
another
Clay?
one? Those are the major ones.
All right. Thanks, Brad. Chris, we're ready for you with the delinquent write-offs.
All right, so the 2021 write-offs were $11,838.
Congratulations. Do you think the budget billing is the big factor on a lot of that?
Prepaid. Yeah,
That's awesome news.
it was a total of 52 accounts this year. 17 of those accounts had deposits, but they weren't high enough to cover the balance, which is why we decided to implement prepay. 2 of them were prepaid COVID members that actually were $1,800 of that total. So if we would not have had COVID, then we would have been under the 10,000 mark. So I was very excited about that.
That's the done.
Good job.
Well done.
Yeah. And I know we don't report out the Wild Blue and the Hometown to you guys, but Wild Blue had 0 and Hometown only had $280. So
That's great.
very small.
So this is like, I can't find a record of anything that's less than this. And actually Matt was talking about when he was at the CFO conference, someone was asking him, is prepay worth it? He's like, yes. I mean, we essentially paid for that program. in 1 year.
Right. So as long as everybody is good with that, then I'll go ahead and process those tomorrow and get them.
We need a
We need a motion. Yeah,
Yeah.
we need a motion.
We have always.
Jason's made a motion to.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same. Go with the financial management policy discussion.
All right, so for a financial management policy, we've been talking about this for quite a while. I think there's some things that this board is on opposite ends of the spectrum, and it makes it difficult as far as what are the, when we load things into our 10-year financial forecast, when we build rates, all those types of things, we sort of need the guidance on some of this stuff, like retirement of capital credits. What year are we? Debt to borrowing equity ratios, things like that. So it's been on our list, I think from two managers ago to the next one, and now it's kind of landing on Matt. So the idea is that Matt's going to start a discussion about kind of what we think of the things and why, and what those ranges look like and why. Just today, just to have kind of the conversation, and then with the thought, if there's any feedback for him, that'd be great. And then hopefully next month, we'll kind of bring something in draft form. So we don't need any decisions made tonight. It's more or less discussion, and then we'll bring in draft form. So Matt?
So we actually had this before I went to the CFO conference, and they actually did a presentation on this while I was there. So I thought I was working on it the night before they presented on it. So I thought that was pretty good. So the things that I feel like in order to be able to forecast and plan, so I have one of the things is what equity percentage do we want to be as a co-op? Do we want to use our local equity? Do we want to include our G&T equity when we calculate what we're measuring ourselves off of? I personally think we should look at our local as our metric. And in general, from what I found at the conference, some people are way higher, some people are way lower, but in general, the consensus was just you target a 40% to 60% equity range on your local equity, and you shoot for 50%. Go over it, you go under it, but that's your target of where you're looking to be. The next thing they talked about is capital credits. How often do you rotate those? What is the time frame that you use the members' money? And they said, the lawyer made the comment, he said, I don't think you'll ever run into problems if you stay under 30 years. He said, if you go over 30 years, he said, I would, how did he put it? He said, I wouldn't recommend that, was his idea. So I thought a target of 20 to 30 years, or a range of 20 to 30 years, you target 25. That way you got yourself some leeway to where you don't get in trouble. Margins, what kind of margin do you want to shoot for every year? I mean, that makes up how much plant you can build, your debt service, more or less the capital credits you can retire. There's lots of factors into how much margin you have as to what you can do. Do you want to run a higher margin or a lower margin? If you run a higher margin, you can always pay it back in capital credits the very next year to return the money if things go better than expected. If you run a lower margin, it could impact how fast, if you have a year where, say, COVID hit and it destroyed your financials, well, then you might have to raise rates right away or borrow more, or it gives you more flexibility. Cash on hand. We use total utility plant percentage. The thing most of them said is they have 90 days of all their expenses was pretty much a common. We were very low there compared to a lot of people. Most people had that they could pay their bills for 90 days if they didn't get $1 in. We can't do that. Then debt. What do we want to do on capital improvements? Do we want to? So a lot of them. I mean, some of them were there was. I think the highest I heard, there was an 80% equity co-op. The lowest was 30%. Some of them were there's all in between. And on capital improvements, do you want to borrow? The idea that was presented to me when I first started that I felt was reasonable is we want to pay for half of it up front, no matter what it is. We want to pay half of it up front, and then we borrow for the other half to let the members who benefit from it over the future pay their share of it. So that was the 50-50 idea. If you build $2 million in plant, you borrow $1 million. The people going forward pay for half of it. Today, you pay for half of it too. And there, the idea is, do you want a range of 30% or to 70%? I mean, you don't ever. I feel like you don't want to have a hard and fast. We're going to do X no matter what. I mean, if interest rates go to 20%, I don't really want to borrow money. If interest rates stay cheap like they are, I do. So overall goals, are we looking as a board, do we want rate stability? Is our goal to not have to raise rates over a longer period of time and minimize rate increases or decreases? Or do we want less stability and more up and downs based off how each year goes? So I guess it's kind of, so when I go to plug numbers into that forecast, I need to know what you guys think it needs to be, or else, I mean, it's garbage in, garbage out. If you don't tell me the marks we're trying to hit, I can give what I think is best, but it doesn't do a lot of good unless you guys tell me where you want me to be. That's, I guess, what I'm asking. I mean, based off what other people say, I mean, those are the general gists of what I got. It's everybody's a little different. So I guess I'm asking what does the board think we should set as our policy going forward? And that's what we'll shoot for. Versus an annual target. This is, say, in 5 years, this is what we're aiming for. So
would it be possible, could you put that question 1, question 2, question 3, question 4, and any mouse out directors, and we can have that prepared for next time?
Yeah.
Like a survey.
Yeah.
Basically what you just said.
Verbatim.
Yeah.
Good news is you can go back.
Yeah, that's right. I'll tape record it.
A little homework.
And I would appreciate your recommendation, Matt.
I mean, I asked around at this conference, so
You're in the trenches.
so
Yeah, that's a good approach. This policy is something that's needed. It's needed for the long-term stability of this organization, honestly. And we got to figure out, even though there may be some disagreements, we still got to figure out like where you guys want us to go so that we can work that way.
So we're good with that. And Matt, you'll be sending something
Yes.
to the board then. All right, thanks, Matt. The next topic. Well,
All right, so one thing I just noticed is I submitted the memo, but I did not, which I don't know that it really helps you. But there's basically a resolution that just says that sort of what the memo tells you, but so this is something we have to do for, and Jeannie was gonna be on, but it looks like she dropped off. This is something we gotta do for the IRS. It's to reinstate the, how do they say it? Resolution of the Board of Directors authorizing the amendment and restatement of the retirement security and the 401 pension plan. So you have to do it every 5 years. 5 years. That's what it is. Everybody want a copy of this?
the resolution.
Yeah.
You guys want to see that real quick?
It's just a reinstatement.
Just to reinstate.
Yeah. So you need
An IRS requirement.
You're looking for a motion.
Yes, yes.
We got a first.
Second.
Jason seconded. All right, all those in favor say aye. Opposed, same. All right, we're good. Crystal, you're going to tell us a little bit about the iPad recommendation.
Yep. So Sam did a lot of research on what options that we had versus an iPad versus a laptop. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the iPads are still our best option because of call to order. Everything is just very easily loaded in there and viewed. Laptops would just be a lot more cumbersome than what you want when you're trying to review all your stuff. So the suggestion would be that we would replace all 8 iPads with brand new iPads so that they're all on the same rotation. So they'll all be replaced at the same time, every time that the cycle is up. He will be upgrading them to the 64 gigabyte because right now everybody only has 32, so you guys don't have a ton of storage. So that'll be doubling on the storage. And then everybody would get a case that has a keyboard. And he said to mention that the keyboard would charge when you charged your iPad, because I guess some keyboards are different and you have to charge them separately than the iPad. So they're all just one. So when you close it and charge it, everything will charge together. If we go ahead and do it pretty soon, Apple is offering some rebates on the used iPads. So they range between $80 and $110, depending on the age of the iPads. So they're all different.
Sure.
We do have 2 of them that are fairly newer. So we would keep them and replace, we have 2 employees that are up for replacement. So we would just replace theirs with
2 of ours.
So doing this would keep us under budget for the whole year on all of our iPad replacements. If somebody would want to purchase their iPad, you can, but we would want to sell it for the price that we would get for the rebate. That way
Okay.
we're not losing money.
Except for the newest two.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Yep.
That's why you're.
That's the suggestion. So if you guys are,
So how quickly with the new?
he says if he gets the order, right now it's currently a 3-week lead time. So we could get them ordered and then have you guys return, but we'll get the new ones loaded within the next month.
So we're talking by June.
Pretty quick.
Probably
Yep.
by June board meeting.
Yep.
Crystal, did you say how much they were? All I heard was the trade-in value. What's the cost?
I don't know what the actual cost is.
Okay.
He doesn't have that on here. I just know that moving forward would keep us under budget as a whole for the.
It's in the budget, Jeff.
Is this a capital or an expense item?
I think we expense these.
Okay.
We do.
I think it's expense, yeah.
Computers, I don't even think our laptops were depreciated. In fact, I know we're not.
Well, I know that one of the things he has on here is that several of the iPads will be end of life at the end of the year, and then they won't be able to be updated. They won't be able to receive the updates. So then that'll cause a problem by the end of the year.
So if we do this, if he hasn't updated ours by now, we don't have to worry about it.
Correct. Yes.
You asking for someone?
Yeah.
Asking for a friend.
Everything's set up on your new one.
What'd you say?
We just set everything up on the new one.
Okay.
That point.
I'll make the motion to approve this.
We don't need a motion. It's,
Oh, we don't?
no, it's within
We need the
budget. We're just
We
looking.
just wanted to make
So
sure,
we're good. Okay.
make sure you guys are all on the same page and that nobody disagrees.
Just let Crystal know, I guess if you're interested in purchasing what you have.
Yeah, if you want to purchase them, let us know, but otherwise we'll go ahead and get everything ordered.
Okay. That's good. Thank you. All right, education piece.
I don't need anything. These are just pieces that we put together from learnings. I mean, the first one is really on everyone's dealing with inventory shortfalls. I thought this was sort of interesting. You guys kind of know what our strategy has been. And then the second one is just information that we got. I don't know if everybody's aware or not, but the state legislative changed, the IURC changed their laws on the payback for net metering. And again, this is just an educational piece that we got from Huger that I thought would be of value to know. That's it. Good.
Good. All right, several policies that we want to kind of go through, but the first one is the report out of policy 17. Compliance with policy 17 TBD, director of education. There's a report that pretty much states what everybody's done. That's assuming that we've heard from everybody along the way. I do want to go through B, C, and D, just to make us aware of where we're at. So B has to do with acquiring your CCD. Jeff, I think you still have another course to take, correct?
It's going to be offered in November. I can't sign up yet.
Okay, but you're going to be taking that in November, correct?
Yes.
Directors will also be required to attend a cost of service study education within the first year of their term. Clay, I don't think you've accomplished that task. Pardon me?
First 2 years.
Within
No, this is the.
The first term. You're right.
First year of their term. So can you get that scheduled? And I think that would be a good approach. I mean, we're gonna be hearing from some cost of service study in the next few months, so to your advantage to go ahead and get that scheduled fairly quick. Part D, directors must also attend at least 2 continuing ed courses annually, Choose Your Energy annual meeting, IEC annual meeting, or a local co-op annual meeting will also serve that purpose. Suzanne, how many did you?
Classes?
Yeah, did you?
I've
Two?
only done one, yeah,
Yeah, okay.
I'm caught up on my classes.
No, you're caught up on your CCD, but were you able to do 2 of those?
No, because they were online the last 2 years. You mean the annual meetings for the neighboring?
Well, no, well, I'm referring to, part of the requirement is attend at least 2 continuing ed events annually. And so it can be a continuing course or.
I've done 2 per year. I'm short, I'm not this year yet.
Okay, so you got the 1.
There's 2 in November, 17th and 18th for the BLC offered.
Okay. I was gonna say in the annual meetings are
Yeah.
good thing to attend as well.
Steve, I'm having difficulty in those, as I shared with you the last. Because most of the BLC classes are on a Thursday, Friday, which I have standing meetings at work. They're mandatory for me. I
It's
do
been
have,
offered this year on Thursday and Friday also.
well, but it's the first of the month, so I think I'm scheduled for one BLC class in November that's not the first weekend, the first Thursday of the month. So I make an effort, but I have difficulty getting it coordinated with work.
And I know Clay, if you would have gotten I think the cost of service study fulfilled that portion of the requirement as well. Correct?
Your education.
You went to the IEC.
Right.
That's pretty much the report out. I think everything's listed there with that. Any questions on that? So let's go ahead and see what you can do to get those scheduled. So we have some policies that we want to go ahead and look at. 116, director conduct.
So these were up for annual review because obviously we got the election and we go over these in June board meeting. So we scheduled them for last year to come up this month. So the first one is director conduct policy. I don't believe we did not make any changes. We did not see any changes for this one.
Okay, did everybody have a chance to go over it? I mean, if there's something that you saw that maybe would need to be addressed. If not, we'll just go to the next one.
This one gets reviewed every year, so it does. Right, so we need to.
Okay. Let's look at policy 110, director conduct things.
The only thing we changed here is this general manager to CEO. That's it.
We good? And not it'll be fine. Let's go to policy 114.
You need to make.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought, can we come back and time all together?
Sure.
You guys good with that unless we find there's significant changes? 114, conflict of interest.
Again, we didn't have any changes.
Policy 15, qualifications for directorship.
Same thing. We had no changes.
It doesn't look like there's really been changes.
I guess that's good.
Director of education, when we talked about part A, I mean, it was a portion of that, but there's a little more substance to it. Again, doesn't look like there were any changes. And then policy 10-1, salary, wage, administration. There were some minor changes.
Yeah, we changed general manager to CEO, and then the only other thing was
anytime, so. So we do mid-years or, so mid-year and end of year performance reviews is what we do. That's 6 months.
All right, so in essence, it looks like we've gone through this very quickly, reviewing that, but there's really only two that have minor changes, correct? Correct. So I'm willing to take a motion to include all the changes for these policies that we just reviewed.
So moved.
I'll make a motion.
Second,
Oh, Suzanne, second.
sorry.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same. All right. All right, we're into affiliated organizations. Who's your energy board?
I was not able to attend the last directors meeting. There was no actionable items. So we didn't send a delegate because there was nothing to vote on. So the minutes of the meeting are included in your board packet. Brett, I think, has a few highlights from the meeting, maybe he wants to discuss.
You want me to go over the MISO?
Yeah.
Okay, so two
Just
things. So number one, high level, as everyone knows, coal is very pressured, cost pressured. They're actually having a problem with labor is what's driving coal prices up. It's across the entire industry. I know one of the IOUs just filed for 16% emergency increase in rates. We are going to see a tracker increase, which was already sort of planned, but it's going to go 3% higher. So that's one change. As everyone knows, gas prices are challenged because of exports and Ukraine, natural gas prices, which is causing the tracker to go up also. And then spot buys in the market are extremely high right now. So all that equates into the tracker. That's what the job of the tracker is to do, is to up and down according to what variable costs are doing. Well, variable costs we've been in a very negative tracker literally for years now. And so we're changing positive and it's going to go up a pretty good amount. So just let everyone know our team is working on, it's not a base rate change, it's a tracker. So it's not like huge, but any change to our members' bills is a big deal. We are working on some communication with that. Shouldn't be a surprise. You can put the news on at any point in time and see that things are going up. They do speculate that it is not expected to be long-term. So all of our plans and the work that Jason and the board has done around the portfolio still is in place and makes sense. This is just a short-term blip that nobody knows how long it's going to last. So the other problem or the other thing is capacity in the MISO market. So when we talk about the MISO market, essentially what RG&T does is they place in our assets into the market and then they get paid for those kWh. And then essentially we have to buy enough back to take up our capacity. The other thing that MISO does is they do a capacity auction. So every single year, it's a requirement for every G&T to go to the capacity auction, and basically you have to either have or purchase enough capacity to cover your members' needs plus some reserve. Capacity prices are normally $2 to $3. Capacity prices coming out of this last capacity market are $233, which really means that the MISO market is short somewhat. It doesn't mean that we're all going to see these outages every day and it's gloom and doom. But what it does mean is the risk for MISO to be short. And this is from, so when we talk about MISO, this is from Canada down to the tip of Texas. So it's not an REMC thing. It's not a Hoosier Energy thing. That entire region is short capacity wise. So if you have big generators on a very, very hot day go down, you're going to see an issue. There will be blackouts. No one can predict that. One of the reasons we're doing the load shed program is because of this. None of these blackouts are long lasting. And again, no one knows when it's coming. Basically, essentially what's happened over the last 10 years is you got more retirement of generation than you do adding in. So that's part of it. The other part of it is load is increasing. Believe it or not, ours is pretty flat to declining, but if you look over the entire MISO market, load is increasing. So again, we are putting together communication to start communicating to our members. But the days of, and the MISO market was really built for, let's say Hoosier Energy goes in, we're long, right? So we had a coal unit where, when I mean long is we've had excess capacity. So we go into the market, we sell that excess. And someone that's short would come into the market and pick up that extra capacity. But what's happening is there's not enough out there for folks that are short to pick up. So the market is, and you can Google this and read all about this. So essentially, if you look at the MISO Energy website, I do it every day now, and I think Matt does too. They're typically on a peak day, you're looking at 80 to 90 gigawatts. If it gets to that 119, they're going to start going through the load curtailment plan. So in the load curtailment plan, we just actually had some training on. So anyways, that was a long-winded answer to capacity constraints in the market itself. And then the tracker. That's really what was discussed. There really wasn't any decisions made at the board meeting. It was really talking about that.
We did take mitigation steps though for the tracker, which we discussed at the last board meeting here, as far as accelerated capital credit retirements that will, hopefully, I assume that we will pass right on through to members to help with that.
Questions on that? And again, I think I sent you all one email that had some reading on the MISO market. There's a ton out there. Just Google it. And it's actually an interesting scenario because down south above Texas, they saw capacity prices normal. The problem is you can't get it up north very easily. So anyways, I could go into this forever, so I'll be quiet. We are working on some communication around both the tracker and load curtailment possibilities, and we're taking some actions there.
What was some of that communication go out, do you think?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Hopefully soon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you're getting service.
Not there yet.
All right, as far as the IEC board, we did not meet. However, you do see the minutes from April's meeting that I already reported on last month. Any additional training the last month that anybody's been involved in? We'll go to the additional couple items that we added to the agenda, election and ballots. And I think Suzanne, you asked about putting this.
Right, so right now I'm going to forward, well, if you guys would want to go back and look, our January meeting, we specifically discussed the voting option at the school. And in our minutes, it says on-site voting at the member event on 6/17 with an SBS representative to tabulate yada yada is approximately $3,500 to do so. So I had communicated to some people because we were talking about how they tabulate. I'm like, or just drop it off when you get your Chick-fil-A. That is not an option. So there has been a huge, I'm going to say the word mistake, because on the ballots, it does not show that being an option. And we discussed it, it's in the minutes. It has online, it has mail, and it has Smart Hub. It does not tell any of our members that they can drop it off at the annual meeting. And we specifically had this discussion and discussed the $3,500. And I got 3 phone calls this week. One, I'm like, well, let me look at my ballot again, and it does not. And we specifically instructed them to do that. So that's really a huge, it's already out there. We can't fix it, but it's a huge mistake on combination of the communication between our staff and the SBS, because the board directed that. It's done, but I just want to bring that to your attention that that was a big mistake.
So if we go back to the SBS, I think we taped it. Their presentation was how they actually do that on site, which is offered, but it's not through your ballot. You wouldn't bring your ballot to the annual meeting.
On-site voting was discussed and we wanted on-site voting.
We are doing on site.
It is going to happen.
It's not doing-
You don't do it through your ballot, so we have to confirm who you are. What you don't want is someone coming through with ballots in their wicker baskets, right? So you have to have confirmation of who it is, their account. They got to be able to meet those credentials. They also have to come in and confirm through registration that they either have or have not voted.
So what's used to have SBS there at the voting site?
Because what they'll do is as soon as we get confirmation that you've registered, you have not voted, SBS will hand you a printout, right? You will vote, they will take it and run it through their scanning system.
Why was that?
Why is it not on the ballot as an option
Nothing
then?
showing.
Because it's
I got.
not through that ballot, so that you don't take that ballot.
I did.
So I think through the voting package, it tells you,
It doesn't say it on the ballot. The options are
you
online,
can't take your ballot.
but it doesn't give you that option to even do that. It doesn't discuss the option. That says a board, we discussed it.
It's on the insert, it's on the website, it's through, if you look at the annual report.
It doesn't give you that option when you're voting. When you're looking at your ballot, it says mail, online, smart.
I get that, and the reason is because your ballot's not what you'll take.
But how would our members even know for in a million years if they have that option?
Through the magazine, website.
I don't think we should have put that on the ballot.
Not if you're not gonna take your ballot.
It's done. That was an option and
So you're saying that if someone drives through the line on night from 3 to 6, they cannot hand their ballot to somebody to be counted?
No, what they will do is they will check in to make sure that they have not voted, right?
Through SBS.
Through SBS, we'll check to see, have you been voted or not? They got to confirm that because it's one member, one vote. Once they confirm that, they will print out that then ballot. They will fill it out and then it will go through the scanner like they normally do.
but that's not an option given on the ballots.
But it's in all of our other material.
But it's not an option on the ballots. If people don't read the magazine, don't do anything else but look at their ballot once a year, they have no idea that that's an option.
I wonder if it's in the ballot package, the voting package.
I just don't see it.
I don't know that.
Mine is. So that's number one. Number two, and Brett, all I need is a yes or no. I don't need any details regarding it, but through the rumor around grapevines, it was brought to my attention that Corporate Relations Department sent an email promoting and providing election information on Polly Fox and Lauren Chung and zero information regarding Suzanne Harmer and Carl Reedman to the employees internally. Is that yes or no?
I don't know. to answer.
And one of your other employees, did you get information regarding Polly and Lawrence and not Carl and Suzanne? You didn't get an email? So the rumors are wrong.
Directly to me? Like,
I'm sorry,
Directly to the employees.
just information regarding Polly's information and Lawrence's information.
Only
So
email
what
we
we-
received was last week about the concerned member page.
But not actually their flyer regarding Polly or Lawrence.
Well, I think that was in there. Wasn't that on
I'm
there?
gonna look it up.
Polly's flyer.
Yeah, I think they were in there, but it was just an email that said these are the communications that have been published so far.
Okay.
And it had the concerned member post, and then it had the article from Polly.
Mhm.
And then I think there was a Facebook post from Lawrence.
And nothing from Suzanne's Facebook post.
I don't think so.
So the other two were sent to employees, but Suzanne's was. Okay, that's what I heard. I just want to make sure that
That was, I mean, that was in the.
the rumor mill was correct then.
So one thing I want to, does everybody realize that we have had employees ask in certain years that everything that gets distributed that we see, they want to know about it. So if there's going to be a flyer out there that says we're borrowing $11 million and we're not, they want to know about it, the employees, because that's the company they work for. If their reputation is going to be, they want to know it. So the agreement was, What we intended on doing was anything that we come across, whether it's in the paper, whether it's, if we catch it on Facebook or if we don't catch it on Facebook, that stuff is going to be sent out to all employees.
So Holly's and Lawrence was, mine was not.
I don't know at what point in time that email was sent out. And
That's fine. That's all I need to know. I heard that and I was brought to my attention by employees over the weekend.
I believe your post was probably after the email was sent. I would assume your post will be on the next email.
That's fine. I just needed it.
That would be nice.
And I started getting contacts and
I can give you the exact.
piggyback on Carl's trying to get a fair election.
so what does us sending information to our employees that's being communicated to through the community, why would our employees not get that information?
Why wouldn't they get it on every candidate?
It's because it probably came after.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to
I
address
mean,
it.
that's my guess. No one here, our point is we're going to get everybody the information that's out there. That was an agreement we made years ago because I honestly got some very upset employees that there was stuff put out there that was misleading and they wanted to know that information. They felt like us not telling them that information. If somebody asked them something, they had no idea about it. So I completely agree with the employees ought to be able to have.
And this
to know what's
was
going on.
Somerville, I wanted to confirm. Thank you.
Anything else about?
That's it.
All right, and then I added, I think Jason, about the letter we received.
I just wanted to know if we needed to do anything. Do we need to do anything with that?
Just like I said,
Is there,
It did.
direct any questions to my lawyer.
not you?
Not this time.
So it says you want to document.
Specific, if my client wants it documented, that's the following.
So have you documented or is this the document?
To document any questions, just send it to my lawyer. Any questions?
No, it says you want to document
I
something.
want the document, what I put in there. Yeah.
So that's the document. And if we have questions about that, we should call your lawyer.
Because it does mention. Made by the chairman of the board. Are you talking over the last 3 years?
Pretty much so.
Anybody else have any comments about the email we received today? All right, is there any additional news, anything new that we to bring up now? If not, I'll take a motion to adjourn. We got a motion to adjourn. We have a second, we're good. Meeting adjourned, everyone. We will go into executive session. We're going to take a quick 5-minute break. If not, we'll head in.
Bye, guys.
Good evening. Thanks.
There's so, Chris,
You did right, that's.
I know you.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Thanks.
Jeff is still on, but we're not.
Yeah, it's not.